A place where no one judges you. The world is loud, but the judgment inside you is louder. You carry it like an invisible burdener tightening in your chest, a flicker of guilt behind your smile, a silent fear of being wrong, being too much, or never enough. Yet somehow, you've survived it. Quietly, invisibly. But what if you didn't have to? What if, for just this moment, there was a place where you didn't have to explain yourself, where you could finally exhale without apology, where your thoughts could uncoil, your body could rest, and your soul could begin again? This is not escape. This is return. You are entering a space where the air is gentle, where there is no spotlight, no pressure, no performance, only presence, only breath, only you. Let your shoulders drop now, let your jaw loosen. Feel the way gravity is holding you, not to trap you, but to remind you, you belong here. A mind that carries too much. Most of your exhaustion isn't physical. It comes from pretending, from overthinking, from replaying conversations and rewriting mistakes, from bracing for a future that hasn't even arrived. You've been trying to stay strong, but strength, real strength, doesn't come from silence. It comes from truth. So let's tell the truth now, quietly, slowly, not to the world, but to yourself. Begin with this: I am tired. Then, and that's okay. Let these words fall into your chest like warm stones settling at the bottom of a river. The inner critic has a script. It says you should be better by now, that you don't deserve rest, that other people have it worse, that you should smile more, try harder, speak less, prove more. But what if none of that is true? What if the part of you that keeps score and carries shame is just afraid? Not cruel, not even confident, just afraid of being forgotten, abandoned, rejected. Fear that doesn't know how to rest becomes control. It becomes judgment. And when that judgment turns inward, it becomes a cage you carry inside your own body. But here's the secret. Cages dissolve in stillness. Breathe in now, not just into your lungs, but into the memory of being alive. Feel the air like a wave meeting the shore of your ribs. Let it gather your fragmented self. Let it say, come home. You are not your achievements, not your appearance, not your productivity. You are not the arguments you lost or the people who left. You are this breath. You are this noticing. You are this quiet awareness that holds even your pain with gentleness. And in this spacino, one is measuring you. You don't have to be better. You only have to be real. A place where no one judges you. Let us begin with what is always true. You have survived things no one saw. Not because you're numb, not because you're strong, but because somewhere inside you, a quiet part refused to break. But surviving isn't the same as living. Enduring is not the same as resting. And you are tired, not just in your bones, but in the thoughts that never stop spinning, in the weight of unshed grief, in the ache of having to constantly appear okay. So here, in this still and sacred pause, you are no longer required to hold it all together. Let it come undone, gently, gradually, without shame. Let your mask slip off, not because someone asked you to, but because you are ready to meet yourself without an audience. Breathe. Let each inhale be a permission. I am allowed to feel. Let each exhale be a release. I don't have to hold this alone. Even now, a part of you might be resisting. That's okay. Resistance is not your enemy. It is the exhausted guard at the gate. It's the armor you wore for too long. You don't have to destroy it. You only need to understand why it was built. And then slowly you begin to loosen it, not by force, but by warmth. The safety that stillness offers. We often think stillness is something we earn at the end of a busy day. But what if stillness is not the reward but the source? In stillness, you are not being lazy. You are becoming intimate with your experience. Close your eyes if it feels right. Sense the world without needing to respond to it. There is a sound beneath all sounds. Your own breath, your own heartbeat, the quiet rhythm of being alive. Notice where your body holds tension. Is it the jaw that clenched when you weren't allowed to speak? The belly that tightened from worry you never voiced? The chest that pulled inward, learning early on that feelings were inconvenient? There is no need to analyze. Just witness. Just be here with yourself. It is enough. You don't need to deserve peace. Somewhere along the way, someone told you rest must be earned. That only after the to-do list is done, the inbox is cleared, the approval received, only then may you sit down and exhale. But that was a lie. You don't need to achieve peace. You need to return to it. Peace is not the absence of pain. It is the absence of resistance to what is real. And right now, what is real may not be tidy. It may be messy, uncertain, complicated. That's okay. Peace is not allergic to your mess. It waits patiently beneath the noise, beneath the judgment, beneath the noise of your overthinking mind. All it asks is, will you sit with yourself now, without performance, without fixing, without pretending? When you feel unseen, there are days, maybe even years, when you felt invisible, like your needs were too much, like your sadness was inconvenient, like your silence was misunderstood. But hear this, you were never too much. You were never wrong for feeling deeply. You were simply human in a world that often forgot how to be gentle. So bring your whole self here now, the loud parts and the quiet ones, the brave and the broken, the hopeful and the haunted. Nothing is denied entry. You don't need to shrink to be held. Here you are witnessed. Here you are worthy. Not because you did something spectacular, but because you exist. That is reason enough. Pause now. Let the breath take the lead. Let it be a rhythm that doesn't demand anything. It simply arrives, and it leaves, and it returns. Like you, place where no one judges you. The mind that never rests. Your mind has learned to stay alert even in silence. It spins narratives, rewrites moments, replays conversations you had years ago, not because it wants to punish you, but because it doesn't yet feel safe. You see, the mind doesn't repeat thoughts to hurt you. It repeats them to protect you. It says, what if I had done it differently? Why do I still feel this way? Am I broken because I still care? But what begins as protection easily becomes a prison. This is the loop. This is the storm. And you, beautifully, silently have survived inside that storm for far too long. Now, we invite the storm to slow, not by fighting it, but by watching it, not by solving it, but by meeting it with breath. You are not your thoughts. You are the sky they pass through. The body is honest. If the mind is a storyteller, the body is a truth teller. It doesn't edit. It doesn't perform. It simply responds. When the mind says, I'm fine, but the shoulders are curled, the heart is racing, and the hands are clenched, the body tells the real story. So we return to it now. Let your awareness settle into the body, not to judge, but to witness. Feel the way your body touches the chair, the bed, the floor. Notice the temperature of the air. Feel where the muscles are holding back tears you never let fall, where the breath hesitates before entering a chest that's known too much grief. You don't need to fix this. You don't need to understand it. You just need to notice. This noticing is already healing. It is already changing something inside you. You are telling your nervous system, I see you. You don't have to be on guard anymore. No one is watching you here. In most places, we are watched, evaluated, compared, but not here. There are no eyes on you in this moment, only presence, and presence does not critique. It does not correct. It simply stays. So let yourself unravel. Cry if you need to. Laugh if it rises. Yawn, stretch, sigh. Let your body express what your words never could. Here, you don't have to be impressive. You don't have to be wise. You don't have to be inspiring. You just have to be, and that your being is holy. Letting go of the inner courtroom. Inside you, there may be a courtroom that never closes. A space where old mistakes stand trial, where you're both the defendant and the judge. That courtroom is not real. It is made of echoes, echoes of other people's voices, echoes of expectations you never agreed to. Let it dissolve now. Let the gavel drop. You don't owe anyone a justification for healing. You don't have to relive the pain to validate it. You don't need a witness to prove what you've survived. Your story matters because you lived it. That is enough. The threshold of returning. Right now, you're not running. You're not performing. You're not building anything. You're not fixing anything. You're simply being with what is here, and what's here might be sadness, or confusion, or quiet joy, or just silence. All of it is welcome. This is the threshold of returning not to who you were before the pain, but to who you've been beneath it all along. The tender, wise, still presence that watched you survive every storm and never left. That's who you are. That's who's breathing now. Stay here a little longer. Not because you must, but because you can. Let the breath be your anchor. Let this moment be your homecoming, a place where no one judges you. When the mind fights stillness, stillness can feel like a foreign country. For a mind trained in urgency, silence feels unsafe. For a heart used to proving its worth, rest feels suspicious. So if you notice discomfort rising as you settle into this calm, know that it's natural. The mind may ask, what are we even doing here? It may whisper, this won't help. It may tug at your attention like a child needing constant distraction. But that's not failure. That's simply the part of you that has forgotten what it feels like to trust presence. Just notice it. Smile at the inner turbulence like you would a skittish animal. Let it move around. Let it breathe too. Eventually, it will tire. Eventually, the noise will soften not because you silenced it, but because you stopped feeding it. You are not behind. Let's gently name the fear that hides beneath your busyness. The belief that you are late to your own life, that others are farther ahead, that healing should have happened by now, that something is wrong with you because you're still not there. But what if there is no such place? What if presence was never a destination, but a returning? What if every breath you take in this exact moment is right on time? You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not a project that must be completed before you are lovable. You are already worthy of rest, even with the questions unanswered. You are already whole even if you can't feel it yet. Let that knowing seep into your skin like warm sunlight. The practice of allowing. There is nothing to force here. No lesson to master. No peak experience to chase. No enlightenment to acquire. Only a soft invitation. Can I allow what is here to simply be here? Not forever. Not perfectly. Just for this breath. This is not a trick. This is presence. You are practicing how to stay not out of obligation, but out of love. When pain arises, you stay. When numbness comes, you stay. When joy bubbles up unexpectedly, you stay. This is how safety is slowly rewoven into the nervous system, not through control, but through trust. Letting the heart speak. The mind can explain things, but the heart feels things it cannot describe. Sometimes, what hurts isn't the memory itself, but the way we had to bury it, the way no one was there to listen, the way we silenced ourselves to survive. But here, the heart may finally whisper what it never had space to say. That hurt me. I was scared. I needed more than I was given. And here's the sacred truth. You can listen now. You don't have to argue. You don't have to defend anyone. You don't have to fix the past. You only need to offer yourself what you needed back then, a presence that doesn't turn away. Breathe. Let the heart be heard without judgment. Even sorrow needs a witness. Even silence deserves to be held. A place where no one judges you. The wounds that don't bleed. There are injuries no one sees. No cast, no scar. Only a quiet shift in how you move through the world. Maybe it was a sentence that pierced deeper than it should have. Maybe it was neglect that taught you to disappear from your own life. Maybe it was the slow erosion of your trust by people who couldn't hold you gently. These wounds don't scream. They whisper. They become patterns. They shape your tone when you speak about yourself. They make you flinch when someone loves you too softly. But these too are allowed here. You do not have to justify your pain by measuring its size. You don't need to compare it. You don't need to explain it. It is enough that you feel what you feel, and that you're willing now to be with what was once too much. Breathing as medicine, the breath is ancient. It knows how to hold sorrow. It knows how to soothe chaos. When you feel overwhelmed, don't try to think your way out. Return to the breath, not because it will fix you, but because it will remind you, you are not what you feel. You are not what you think. You are the one who notices. Breathe in, gentleness. Breathe out, permission. Let your breath widen the space around discomfort. Let it wrap around your pain like soft cloth. This isn't avoidance. It's care. This is how you become the parent to the parts of you that were left alone too long, dismantling the need to apologize. Have you ever noticed how often you apologize for simply being human? Sorry, I'm crying. Sorry, I need time. Sorry, I feel this way. But what if your tears are sacred? What if needing space is not a weakness, but a wisdom? What if your emotions are not disruptions, but signals? In this space, you no longer need to shrink yourself to be accepted. You are allowed to take up space not as proof of anything, but as a birthright. There is no shame in having needs. There is no failure in having feelings. There is no weakness in needing rest. Every being in nature knows when to retreat. So why not you? Let yourself soften. Let yourself ask for less. Let yourself receive more. Grounded in what's true. When the mind spirals, when doubt creeps in, when old pain rears its head, anchor yourself in what is real now, not what might happen, not what should have been, not what they thought of you, just this. You are here. You are breathing. You are choosing, in this moment, to show up. That is already a miracle. Let your body feel the ground beneath it. Let the present moment hold your weight. Let the future rest for now. Nothing is required of you in this space except honesty. You don't need to perform peace. You don't need to smile through ache. You only need to remain, and that your presence is more powerful than you know. A place where no one judges you. The quiet power of being seen. We all carry a longing, often unspoken, sometimes unnoticed, to be seen, not admired, not praised, just seen. To be noticed in the rawness of a moment. To be held in silence without advice. To be understood without needing to explain. Many of your wounds were born not from what was done to you, but from what was not acknowledged. The loneliness of invisible pain. The silence that followed your quiet cries. The way your grief echoed in empty rooms. But here, something is different. You are not invisible. You are not being evaluated. You are being met in this breath, in this body, in this moment. No masks, no edits, only you, and that is more than enough. Bridging the gap between who you are and who you perform. You have likely built a version of yourself for the world, one that functions, that smiles, that keeps everything together. And maybe that version has been applauded. But inside, perhaps there is another self tired of performing, tired of smiling through pain, tired of pretending to be fine when something inside is quietly collapsing. This space is the bridge. Here, the performing self can exhale. Here, the truer self can stretch its limbs again. You don't have to choose between the two. You only have to notice. Both exist, but only one needs rest right now. Let the tired version lie down. Let the truest version breathe. Let the parts of you that were exiled by expectations come back into the circle. Here, everything belongs. There is no healing without contact. True healing doesn't happen in avoidance. It begins in contact, not dramatic, not forced, just quiet, honest contact with what you've been avoiding. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to write a speech about it. You just need to turn toward it even a little. Toward the regret you've buried, toward the grief you silenced, toward the longing you were told was too much. Let it arise. Let it breathe. Let it sit beside you, like an old friend you're ready to meet again. That too is part of you, and nothing that is part of you deserves to be abandoned anymore. What softness can do, Softness is not the opposite of strength. It is the evidence of it. It takes strength to pause when you're used to pushing. It takes courage to be kind when you're hurting. It takes trust to be quiet when the world demands noise. So let softness wrap around you now, like a blanket pulled over your shoulders by someone who loves you, like warm water after a long winter, like forgiveness you never thought you deserved but give to yourself anyway. Let your breath become softer. Let your expectations soften. Let your inner dialogue soften. This is not weakness. This is sacred rebellion. You are choosing to care for yourself, not to escape the world, but to re-enter it with a steadier heart, a place where no one judges you. The art of meeting yourself gently. There is a voice within you, quiet, tender, that remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. That voice has been buried beneath layers of pressure and shame, silenced by shoulds and not enoughs, muted by the noise of doing, achieving, adjusting, but it's still there. You hear it sometimes when the world goes quiet, when you're alone in a car with music that makes your chest ache, or when you walk beneath trees and forget your name for a moment. That voice doesn't demand, it invites. It says, you're allowed to slow down. You don't have to carry this alone. I'm still here. I never left. This is the voice of your inner witness, your wholeness beneath the noise. And now, we let it speak again. Let yourself meet yourself gently. No pushing, no fixing, just presence. Releasing the need to be understood. Part of what exhausts you isn't just pain, it's the need to explain it. You long to be understood, to have someone look at you and just get it. And maybe that hasn't happened. Maybe they misunderstood your silence. Maybe they dismissed your sorrow. Maybe they didn't have the tools to hold your truth. So you kept translating your heart into languages they could hear, over-explaining, apologizing, editing your sadness into something more palatable. But in this space, understanding is not a requirement for belonging. You don't need to justify your ache. You don't need to put your feelings into pretty words. You don't even need to be understood. You only need to be allowed. And here you are. The permission to be unfinished. Let go of the myth that says healing must look like clarity, that peace must arrive like a sunrise, that you must have answers before you can rest. Healing is not linear. It's not clean. It doesn't always make sense. Sometimes it's 3 steps forward, then a fall. Sometimes it's crying over something you thought you'd already buried. Sometimes it's just getting out of bed and deciding not to give up. There is grace in being unfinished. Let yourself be mid-sentence. Let your becoming be messy. Let your transformation be gentle. Even the moon has phases. So can you. Rest is not a luxury, it's a right. You've been taught to keep going, to stay productive, to power through. But what if rest isn't something you earn? What if it's your most natural state? You are part of nature, and nature rests. The tide pulls back. The trees go bare. The bear hibernates. None of them apologize. None of them explain. They simply know. Rest is necessary. It is part of the cycle, not separate from it. So rest now, not because you've done enough, but because you exist. And that is enough. A place where no one judges you. The light that doesn't leave you. Even in your darkest seasons, something in you stayed lit. It may have been a flicker, a fragile flame in the corner of your chest. You may not have noticed it through the noise of survival, but it never left. This light is not made of motivation or positivity. It's made of truth. The truth that you are still here. That even when you doubted yourself, some part of you chose to breathe again, to stand up again, to whisper, maybe, just maybe. You don't need to ignite anything now. You only need to stop blowing out the light that's already burning within you. Let it glow, quietly, boldly, without performance, without apology. The center that can't be taken. You have lost things. You have been hurt in ways that reshaped your edges. But at your center, something remains untouched. It is not your name, not your personality, not even your beliefs. It is presence. It is the part of you that has watched it, all the joy, the grief, the change and stayed silent, steady, still. No experience has ever diminished it. No heartbreak has shattered it. No mistake has defined it. It waits for you not in the past you miss or the future you fear, but right here, in this breath. Every time you return to yourself, that center welcomes you back, not with fireworks, with stillness, with open arms. You never left it, you only forgot. Closing the chapter, opening the heart. As this chapter draws to a close, don't rush away. Don't leap into the next thing, the next plan, the next demand. Pause. Feel the way your body sits heavier now, perhaps. Calmer, truer. Feel the way your mind is quieter, not empty, but less tangled. Feel the way your heart stretches toward itself, not as a concept, but as a reunion. You have not been judged here. You have been met, not by a teacher, not by a guide, but by your own presence. And that presence will not abandon you. You can return to it at any time. It lives not in words or wisdom. It lives in noticing, in breath, in choosing to stop for just a moment and listen. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not unworthy. You are simply gloriously human. And that is the most sacred thing of all. The breath is the beginning. There is something within you that never left, something steady, simple, ancient. It doesn't need you to believe in it. It doesn't care if you doubt it. It simply arrives and leaves and returns. It is your breath, the one thing that has never abandoned you, the one rhythm that sang beneath heartbreak, beneath panic, beneath numbness. It waited when you ignored it. It softened when you were too hard on yourself. It held you, even when you forgot to hold yourself. And no, it asks nothing, only this: will you notice me? Learning to return without shame. The breath is always home, but most of us have forgotten where home is. You may have been taught to chase worth, to run faster, speak louder, do more. You may have been told to take a deep breath as a command, not an invitation. And so, breath became a task, another thing to do, another thing to get right. But breathing was never about perfection. It is not a performance. It is presence. Right now, take a soft inhale. Not deep, not dramatic, just honest. And as you exhale, feel the weight in your body lower slightly, like an unseen pressure being given permission to melt. You don't need to force anything. You don't even need to close your eyes. You only need to notice what's already happening. That noticing is sacred. Beneath every thought, a breath. Most people don't breathe. They are breathed. They move through life with shallow inhales, tight chests, hurried lungs, as if they're always one step behind safety, one gasp away from calm. But underneath every storm of thought is the breath, waiting. Under every argument in your mind, under every fear disguised as logic, under every plan your anxiety insists you must make, there it is, soft, rhythmic, undemanding. It doesn't care what you're thinking. It doesn't need your pain to be solved. It simply keeps going. The breath is not a solution, it's a sanctuary. The breath as a mirror. How you breathe is how you live. A held breath often reflects held emotion. A shallow breath echoes a shallow sense of safety. A rushed breath may reveal the unspoken pressure to keep up. So ask yourself, when did I last breathe fully? Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. When did I last let my exhale linger like a sigh of trust? When did I last let the breath lead me instead of trying to control it? This is the beginning of coming home, not to a better version of you, but to a version that trusts the wisdom already in your lungs. Every inhale is a message. You are here. Every exhale is a message. You can let go. The breath is the beginning. You don't need to deserve this breath. Somewhere along the way, you may have learned that rest must be earned, that ease must be paid for, that to slow down is to fall behind. So even now, a part of you might ask, have I done enough today to deserve peace? But your breath doesn't ask that question. It arrives even when you feel like a failure. It returns even when your self-worth disappears. It does not discriminate between your good days and your low ones. Your breath is not a reward, it is a right. You don't have to deserve this inhale. You don't have to apologize for this exhale. You are not borrowing air, you belong to it. So let yourself take another breath now, fully, without hesitation, without apology. That is not indulgent. That is sacred. The nervous system isn't the enemy. When your heart races for no clear reason, when your chest feels tight but nothing bad has happened, when you feel like crying but can't explain why, it is not weakness, it is not drama, it is your nervous system asking for help. It doesn't speak in words, it speaks in patterns, and breath is the language it understands best. Each slow exhale tells your body, you're safe now. Ach, gentle inhale says, you don't have to brace anymore, and you are not broken. You are just still carrying yesterday's fear in today's body. Let the breath move through you not to fix, but to reintroduce you to softness, letting the exhale finish. Most people underestimate the exhale. They chase the inhale, thinking it's the energizing force. But the exhale, the letting go, that's where peace lives. The exhale is a release of tension, of holding, of control. And so many of us, without knowing, cut it short. We rush to breathe in again, afraid of the space that follows letting go. But that space is not emptiness. It's where healing begins. So try it now. Breathe in, slowly, and then exhale all the way. Let it empty you. Let it draw out the tension from your belly, your throat, your jaw. And when you reach the end, pause for just a moment. Notice how stillness doesn't mean danger. It means arrival. When the breath is uncomfortable, sometimes when we finally turn inward, the breath feels tight or shallow or uneven. It's easy to panic at this point, to think, why can't I breathe right? Why does this feel worse? But here's the truth. That discomfort is not a failure. It's simply the body saying, I've been ignored for a long time. You're not doing it wrong. You're just noticing clearly for the first time. So don't rush to change it. Just sit with it. Let the breath be messy. Let it be inconsistent. Let it be yours. Compassion is not just for your thoughts. It belongs in your breath too. Meet your breath like you would meet a frightened child, not with force, but with warmth. That's how it begins to trust you again. The breath is the beginning. The breath as a bridge. The mind wants to jump ahead. It's a future maker. It lives in what ifs and what nexts. But the breath is always now. It becomes a bridge between the mind's chaos and the body's calm. A gentle thread pulling you back from spirals into this one undeniable moment. You may still be thinking, that's okay. This isn't about shutting down the mind. It's about offering it somewhere safe to land. And the safest place it can land is the rhythm already moving through your chest. The breath doesn't cancel thoughts. It anchors you beneath them. You're not floating anymore. You are rooted, resting in the pause. Between the inhale and the exhale, there's a pause. A quiet, barely noticeable gap. A sliver of stillness. Most of us skip it, rush past it, don't trust it. But within that pause lies deep wisdom. It's not empty. It's not waiting for the next thing. It is presence untouched, unhurried, whole. Let yourself rest there, just for a heartbeat. Inhale, pause. Exhale, pause. In that space, you are not your timeline. You are not your urgency. You are not what you haven't done yet. You are breath. You are alive. And that is enough. Listening to the breath, not controlling it. When we begin to notice the breath, the first instinct is to control it. You may find yourself trying to breathe correctly, trying to sound calm, trying to get it right. But the breath does not ask to be mastered. It asks to be listened to. There is a natural rhythm already inside you, older than your thoughts, older than your trauma. You don't need to create peace. You only need to stop interrupting it. Try this. Let your next few breaths come and go without interference. Watch them like waves. You are the shore. You don't need to direct the tide, just receive it. And if it feels uneven, let that be okay. What matters is not how smooth the breath is, but how kind your attention is. That's what heals. When breathing feels unsafe. For some, breath has not always been a safe place. Maybe you were taught to hold your breath emotionally or literally. Maybe your body associates slowness with helplessness. Maybe the act of turning inward brings discomfort you weren't prepared for. That's not failure. That's information. You are not bad at breathing. You are simply in a body that has learned to protect itself, sometimes through tension, sometimes through numbness. This space does not ask you to push through it. You are invited to be gentle, to say, I see you, breath. I'm not here to control you. I'm here to meet you again at your pace. And slowly, like a guarded animal, the breath may begin to soften. Not because you demanded it, but because you stayed. The breath is the beginning, the breath beneath the story. Your mind has a story it likes to tell. It tells you who you are, what you've done wrong, what you must still achieve before you're allowed to rest. Sometimes that story is loud, urgent, convincing. Other times it's quiet but constant, a background hum of shame or striving. But underneath every story, there is breath. The breath doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It doesn't try to reframe your thoughts. It simply exists, patiently. It waits for you beneath every spiral, every panic, every loop. And when you're ready, it offers a way out, not through thought, but through return. You don't have to rewrite the story right now. You only have to breathe underneath it. Let that be your quiet rebellion, holding space for what breath reveals. Breath is more than oxygen. It is a door, and sometimes, when you walk through that door, old things rise. Tears you never cried, fear you packed away, a loneliness you talked yourself out of. When this happens, do not run. This is not the breath betraying you. This is your body finally feeling safe enough to speak. The breath does not just calm, it clears. It doesn't just soothe, it reveals. Let it do its work. Let the ache come, if it must. Let the trembling pass through. You are not falling apart. You are letting go of what you were never meant to carry alone. What deep breathing really means. Take a deep breath, they say. But what they often mean is, calm down, hide it better, get it under control. So we learn to force the breath, to push it down like medicine we never wanted, to treat it as performance, not presence. But true deep breathing is not about length, it's about trust. It's not a command, it's a permission. It says, take as much space as you need. Let yourself fill completely. Let yourself be felt. Try now, not a breath that proves anything, but one that listens to the quiet parts of you, the ones that have been waiting to be included. This is what depth really is. Breath that touches all of you. Returning to breath after wandering, you will forget. Your attention will drift. Thoughts will return. Stories will spin. This is not failure. This is practice. The moment you realize you've wandered, that is the moment of return. That is the heartbeat of awareness. Noticing is the practice, not staying focused. Returning is the strength, not never leaving. You are allowed to come back 1,000 times. Each time you do, the breath will still be here. Soft, unchanged, unoffended. You don't have to start over. You simply begin again and again. And every return is a reminder. Nothing is lost. You are still welcome here. The breath is the beginning. The breath doesn't rush you. You may live in a world that values speed, that urges you to move faster, speak faster, solve everything before you've even had time to feel it. But the breath does not live in that world. The breath does not care if you're productive. It does not care if you're getting somewhere. It only wants you to be here. It will never hurry you. It will never ask, why aren't you better yet? It simply waits loyal and unchanging until you're ready to notice it again. And when you do, it says, welcome back. I've been here the whole time. No resentment, no urgency, only presence. This is what grace feels like, not grand, but quiet. Not earned, but offered. Following the breath into the body. Your body is not an enemy. It's not a problem to be fixed or a project to be improved. It is a home. And the breath is the key that opens its door. Let the breath guide your awareness down into your neck, your shoulders, your chest. Feel where you clench, where you grip, where you hold. Not to change it, just to meet it. Sometimes the body tenses not because of threat, but because it was never taught to relax. Let this breath be your first teacher. With each inhale, send permission. With each exhale, send release. If your belly rises, let it rise without shame. If your throat catches, let it catch without fixing. The body is listening. It always has been. Now, you're listening back. The breath as prayer without words. Not all prayers are spoken. Not all healing needs language. There is something ancient about the breath, something beyond belief systems, beyond philosophies. Each inhale is a reaching, each exhale a surrender. You don't need to know what you're healing from. You don't need to name every wound. You only need to breathe like someone who believes they're worth returning to. That is prayer. That is devotion, not to something outside you, but to what's been waiting within. Building trust, one breath at a time. You may not trust yourself yet. Not fully, not always. You may still doubt your ability to stay present, to feel without collapsing, to rest without guilt. That's okay. Trust is not a switch. It's a muscle. And each breath you take with kindness is a single repetition. Every time you soften instead of criticize, return instead of retreat, notice instead of numb, you're building something new. You're not erasing the old, you're layering over it, one breath at a time. You don't have to believe in your healing yet. The breath believes in it for you. The breath is the beginning. When the breath meets emotion, sometimes breath touches something raw, a memory, a pang of shame, a grief you thought was long gone. Don't pull away. You are not regressing. You are remembering. This is what happens when numbness begins to thaw, when silence is replaced by sensation. Let the tears come. Let the tightness speak. Let your breath shake if it needs to. This is not weakness. This is your system exhaling stories it's held for years. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to narrate it. Just breathe with it. Like you would sit beside a friend who finally, after all this time, begins to cry. Stay, rooting into the earth of your body. Imagine your body as earth, not a machine, not an object, a landscape. The breath is rain falling on dry soil. With each inhale, something softens. With each exhale, something releases. Your hips, your spine, your feet, they belong to gravity. They don't need to be lifted or held in tension. Let them settle. Let yourself root. So much of our anxiety is upward rushing into the head, the thoughts, the plans. But healing is downward. It begins in grounding. Let your breath fall like water. Let your body become soil that no longer resists its own weight. This, too, is a form of prayer. When stillness feels boring, if you find yourself distracted, restless, impatient, it's okay. Stillness may feel foreign at first, boring, even pointless. But that's not because nothing is happening. It's because something deep inside you is detoxing from urgency, from stimulation, from noise. We've been taught that silence means emptiness. But silence is never empty. It's just that you're finally quiet enough to feel what lives beneath the surface. If boredom arises, greet it like a messenger. Ask, what do you want me to feel that I've been avoiding? And then breathe. The boredom may fade, or it may deepen into presence. Either way, you're staying. And staying is where the shift begins. Breathing without a goal. Not everything needs to be useful. You are not breathing to become enlightened. You are not here to achieve presence. You are not meditating your way to worthiness. You are here because breath is life. Because somewhere in your chest, you remembered that you're tired of chasing, that you want to stop, that you want to feel something real. Let the breath be real. No technique, no goal, no outcome. just this moment, just this inhale, just this exhale. This is enough. You are enough. The breath is the beginning. Part 7 of 8. The breath protects without walls. There is a part of you that thinks protection means closing, tightening, bracing, withdrawing. But protection does not always need to be armor. Sometimes it can be breath. A soft inhale that says, I'm safe enough to feel. A steady exhale that says, I'm allowed to stay. Your breath is not a barrier between you and the world. It's the space that lets you meet the world without disappearing. You don't have to harden to survive. You can remain open and still be protected. Every breath is a subtle boundary, a reminder that your body is your own. Your experience is valid. Your pace matters. Let this breath be a gentle shield, not to shut you down, but to hold you together. Your breath is not a stranger. Maybe you've spent years disconnected from your body. Maybe you learned to treat it like a machine. Maybe you stopped listening to it after too much pain. And now, when you sit still and breathe, it feels foreign, unfamiliar, distant. That's okay. You're not starting from scratch. You're returning to a relationship that never stopped trying. Your breath has been waiting, not judging you for leaving, not asking for explanations, only hoping you'd come back. With every inhale, you're saying, I remember you. With every exhale, I trust you again. This reunion may be awkward, it may be tender, but it is real, and it is enough. The breath knows how to hold grief. Grief isn't just about death, it's about loss, the ending of a dream, the moment someone didn't see you, the version of yourself you thought you'd become. And grief doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it sighs. Sometimes it lingers in your chest, refusing to move. Sometimes it disguises itself as fatigue, apathy, even numbness. You don't need to dig it out. You don't need to fix it. You only need to breathe with it. Let the inhale make room. Let the exhale release the pressure. Grief is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to be witnessed. And breath is the witness that never turns away. The light within the breath. Even when everything feels dim, even when hope seems small, your breath glows. You may not see it with your eyes, but you can feel lighter warmth, a pulse, a presence. It's not loud. It doesn't try to prove itself. It just continues. Like a candle in the dark, it stays lit. Not because you force it, but because that's what life does. It continues. Let this breath remind you, you are not the end of your story. You are not stuck. You are still breathing. And that means life is still moving. Light is still flickering. Something is still possible. Stay with that. The breath is the beginning. Breath as a place to land. There are moments in life when nothing feels steady. People shift, plans fall through, hope flickers. And in those moments, your mind reaches for something to hold on to. Let it be your breath. When you can't find clarity, find breath. When you don't know what to feel, feel breath. When your heart is too full, or too empty, or too tired, return. The breath won't ask you to explain. It won't try to fix you. It will simply say, land here, be here, I'll carry you. And it will. Inhale, exhale, again. You are not late. You may feel like you should have found peace already, like healing should have happened faster, like you're behind in your journey. But breath has no schedule. It does not measure time. It only knows rhythm. You are not late. You are arriving now in the only moment that ever truly matters. This one, the breath isn't asking where you've been. It's offering to walk with you from here. Nothing left to prove. The breath does not need you to be wise. It does not need you to be perfect. It does not need you to be healed. It needs only one thing, your willingness. Willingness to stay, to notice, to soften. You don't have to get it right. You don't have to do it well. You don't even have to believe in it all the time. You only have to return to this body, to this moment, to this breath, over and over, closing gently. And now, as this chapter draws to a close, don't rush forward. Let the breath stay with you just a little longer. Let it follow you into your next hour, your next conversation, your next silence. You don't need to hold on to it tightly. Just remember, it's there, waiting beneath the noise, willing to begin again. So, when the mind grows heavy, when your chest tightens, when old stories try to take the wheel, you know what to do. Return, not to an idea, not to an answer, to breath, to you, to now. Pain is not a problem to solve. There are things inside you that hurt not because you've done something wrong, but because you are human. Pain is not a mistake. It is not a flaw in your character or a punishment for your past. It is a messenger. And yet, most of us treat pain like an intruder. We try to silence it. We try to outthink it. We treat it as something to eliminate as quickly and quietly as possible. But pain doesn't need to be solved. It needs to be seen. So let's begin here. Not with the question, how do I make this go away? But with a deeper one. What is this pain trying to show me? Pain speaks in sensations, not sentences. Pain rarely announces itself with clarity. It doesn't hand you a diagnosis or a manual. Instead, it speaks in sensations. A tight chest, a lump in the throat, a heaviness in the limbs, a sudden wave of sadness with no name. And our instinct is to interpret, to analyze, to fix. But what if you didn't need to interpret anything? What if your only job was to listen, to breathe, to sit beside the pain like it's not an enemy, but a part of you asking to be held? You don't have to understand your pain to honor it. You only have to stay. Pain without shame. One of the deepest forms of suffering is not pain itself, but the shame we attach to it. You feel anxiety, and then shame for feeling anxious. You grieve, and then shame for how long it's lasting. You feel anger, and then shame for being too much. So the pain multiplies not because it grows, but because you bury it under judgment. Let's stop here. Let this space be one where pain is allowed to exist without labels, where sorrow is not called weakness, where anger is not banished, where numbness is not mistaken for failure. Breathe into your pain, not to push it away, but to let it know it no longer has to fight for your attention. It is already welcome. The gentle practice of turning toward. Turning toward pain may be the most radical thing you'll ever do. It's not flashy. It's not dramatic. It's a quiet, sacred pivot, away from avoidance, toward presence. Pain softens not when it is conquered, but when it is met. That meeting may look like silence, or a tear you didn't expect, or a sudden breath that goes deeper than before. Stay with it, not forever, just for now. You don't need to be brave. You only need to be here. Pain is not a problem to solve. Pain as process, not punishment. Pain is not something to be earned. It is not a sign that you've failed. It is not the universe trying to teach you a harsh lesson through suffering. Pain is process. It is movement. It is the body and mind trying to integrate something too large, too sudden, too complex to digest all at once. Sometimes pain shows up after a loss. Sometimes it shows up in stillness when the distractions quiet, and something you buried long ago surfaces without warning. But it's never random. Pain is the language of what you have not yet named. It's the signal of where your attention is needed most, not to fix, to feel. You don't have to be stoic. You were likely taught that strength looks like silence. That endurance means hiding your tears. That maturity is the ability to move on. But what if none of that is true? What if strength is softness? What if courage is the willingness to cry, even when no one understands why? What if healing isn't linear, neat, or graceful, but messy, circular, and beautifully human? There is no prize for holding it in. There is no trophy for surviving silently. Let yourself be seen by yourself most of all. You don't have to be okay all the time to be worthy of care. You don't have to bounce back to belong. Right now, pain is a guest. It does not need to be banished. It only needs to be acknowledged. Staying without solving. We are conditioned to fix things, to mend what's broken, to soothe what's uncomfortable, to replace what hurts with something shinier. But pain is not brokenness. It is aliveness. You feel pain because you are still here, because something in you is still open, still caring, still connected. So for now, don't solve, just sit beside. Let the pain know, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to be with you. That presence alone is a balm. When you stop resisting what hurts, the pain no longer needs to scream. It softens, not because it's gone, but because it's finally allowed to rest. The loop of resistance. The more you push pain away, the louder it becomes. Avoidance strengthens the very thing you're trying to escape. Suppression adds pressure to what already aches. That's the loop. Pain, resistance, more pain, more resistance. But one breath of allowing breaks the cycle. You may still hurt, but you're not spiraling. You're not at war with your own experience. You're not demanding it change before you offer yourself compassion. This is how healing begins, not when pain ends, but when resistance does. Let yourself stop resisting now, just for a breath, just for this moment. Pain is not a problem to solve. Pain connects you. Pain has a way of isolating you. It can make you feel like no one understands, like you're the only one carrying something so heavy, so specific, so invisible. But pain is also one of the most universal things in existence. Everyone has carried sorrow. Everyone has known what it feels like to lose something, to be misunderstood, to wake up with a tightness in the chest that words cannot explain. Your pain may be personal, but it is not private. When you allow yourself to feel it, not hide it, not weaponize it, not numb it, you step into the quiet truth of connection. You begin to see others differently, not just their words, but their tremble, not just their smiles, but the silence behind their eyes. And in that seeing, you soften. Pain, when allowed, opens your compassion, not as theory, but as instinct. The bridge to others. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be fine. It needs more people who know how to stay with themselves when they're not. People who don't turn away from suffering, especially their own. People who can sit with discomfort, theirs and others, without rushing to solve or escape. Your pain, when met with presence, becomes a bridge, a quiet invitation to others. You don't have to hide here. I see you. I've been there too. You become a refuge, not by being unshaken, but by being real. You become trustworthy not because you're always calm, but because you don't look away. This is how pain transforms, not by disappearing, but by deepening you. You are not your pain. There may be days when your pain feels like your identity, when the story of what happened, what didn't happen, or what was lost clings like a second skin. But you are not your pain. You are the one who feels it. You are the awareness that holds it. Pain is something that moves through you. It is not who you are. Like weather, it has seasons. It arrives, it stays, it shifts, it fades. Even if it's lasted a long time, even if it's carved itself into your routines and thoughts, still it is not you. You are the sky. Pain is just a cloud. Let it pass without becoming it. What pain teaches, when you're ready. Pain isn't here to teach you a lesson right now. It's here to be felt. But eventually, when presence returns and breath is steady, it may begin to whisper. It might show you what matters most. It might reveal where you've been silenced. It might remind you of what you never want to lose again. Or it might simply say, you made it. You're still here. Pain is a mirror. It reflects not only where it hurts, but where you're healing. And sometimes, the lesson is not in the pain itself, but in your decision to turn toward it with love. That is wisdom. That is growth. And it doesn't come from fixing. It comes from staying. Pain is not a problem to solve. When pain begins to soften, you may be wondering, how long will this pain last? When will it go away? These are natural questions, but pain doesn't work on timelines. It doesn't check calendars or track your progress. It responds only to one thing: presence. The more gently you stay with it without trying to edit or escape, the more it shifts. Not instantly, not always noticeably, but something softens. The edges aren't as sharp. The heaviness lifts, even slightly. The resistance dissolves, and something beneath the pain begins to breathe again. This isn't magic. This is what happens when pain is finally allowed to be what it is. Not a problem, not a punishment, just a signal, a sensation, a part of your human story. Tears as a language. Tears are not breakdowns. They are breakthroughs. They are the body's way of saying, I can't hold this inside anymore. They never saw me. I'm finally safe enough to feel. Crying is not weakness. It is release. It is remembering. It is the storm that clears the air for sunlight to return. Let the tears fall. They are not interruptions. They are answers. They are the breath expressed in water. And what flows, heals. The stillness after the storm. After the wave of pain crashes, there is a moment. Still, quiet, suspended. It may only last a breath, but in that breath, there is no story, no tension, just space. That space is healing. That pause is sacred. This is where your nervous system resets, where your heart recalibrates, where your soul says, thank you for staying. Don't rush out of this stillness. Don't fill it with thought or movement. Rest inside it, even for a few seconds. This is your center, rediscovered. What you learn when you stay. When you stay with pain, not to analyze or justify, but to simply be with it, you begin to see what's underneath it. You see the tenderness you've been protecting, the longing you silenced, the boundaries you never learned to draw, the love you needed and didn't receive. Pain reveals the map of your unmet needs, but it also reveals your resilience. Look at how long you've carried this. Look at how many days you woke up anyway. Look at how your heart still whispers yay 7 when it's tired. This is what you find when you stop running. Not despair, but depth. Pain is not a problem to solve. Compassion, the antidote to pain's loneliness. Pain can feel like isolation. Even when surrounded by others, it tells you, no one gets it. No one sees this part of you. No one would stay if they did. But compassion breaks that illusion. Not always from the outside. Often, it begins within. When you place a hand on your own chest and say, I see you. I'm sorry it's been so hard. I'm staying with you this time. Pain begins to shift. Not because it disappears, but because it's no longer exiled. You're not leaving yourself this time. You're holding yourself in ways no one else could. And that is a kind of love that pain doesn't know how to resist. Self-forgiveness is a softening, not a verdict. Many pains are rooted not in what others did, but in what you believed you failed to do. I should have known better. Why did I let that happen? I keep making the same mistake. End quote. This self-judgment becomes its own wound. It layers shame on top of sorrow. But forgiveness, true forgiveness, doesn't erase what happened. It says, yes, that hurt. Yes, you wish it had gone differently. And yes, you still deserve kindness. Self-forgiveness isn't a decision. It's a practice. A daily act of turning toward your pain and saying, you don't have to keep proving you've suffered enough. You already have. Let it be enough now. Pain changes shape when you breathe with it. Pain, like any emotion, responds to attention. When ignored, it stiffens. When judged, it sharpens. But when breathed with, it softens. Not because you're overriding it, but because you're letting it exist without resistance. Try it now. Breathe in, acknowledging the ache. Breathe out, allowing space for it to move. You don't need to clear the pain. You only need to stay with it long enough for it to be heard. The body doesn't demand solutions. It asks only, will you listen now? And when you do, something changes. Not in a way you can always describe, but you feel it. Subtle, slow, real. Your heart was never meant to stay closed. Pain teaches caution. It builds walls. It narrows your willingness to risk, to hope, to feel. That's understandable. But pain was never meant to be a permanent shield. Its purpose is to alert, to protect, not to imprison. There comes a moment gently, not forcefully, when your heart asks, is it safe to open again? And only you can answer. But here's a truth that may guide you. Your heart doesn't have to open all at once. It doesn't need to be wide open. It just needs a crack. Enough for breath to pass through. Enough for light to find its way in. Enough for you to feel, I am still alive. That's all healing asks for today. Pain is not a problem to solve. Letting go of the healing deadline. There is no clock on healing. No calendar that says, you should be over this by now. No finish line to cross with a ribbon that reads, all better. But still, part of you might ask, why am I still feeling this? Why isn't it gone yet? What's wrong with me? There is nothing wrong with you. You are not failing at healing. The pain lingers, not because you're broken, but because something in you still needs attention, not urgency. Healing is not a race. It is not a performance. It's a slow remembering of how to stay present while still hurting. You are allowed to live and heal at the same time. You are more than the wound. When pain lasts a long time, it can become familiar. So familiar, it begins to feel like your identity. But you are more than what happened. You are more than what you lost. You are more than what you didn't receive. Pain may have shaped you, but it does not define you. You are not the wound. You are the one who witnessed it, who walked through it, who is still breathing, still trying, still loving. And that trying, even when it's quiet, even when no one sees it is holy, let that be known. You are not what hurt you. You are what has survived. Healing happens in spirals. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line. It loops, it revisits, it repeats. One day, you feel whole. The next, a memory returns. You cry unexpectedly. You question your progress. This is not backsliding. This is the spiral. Each time you revisit your pain, you are meeting it with new eyes, more capacity, more understanding, more breath. You are not starting over. You are going deeper, like peeling layers from an onion, like descending gently toward the root. The spiral is sacred. It is not delay, it is devotion. You're allowed to hurt and hope at the same time. Some people think they have to wait until they're fully healed to hope again, to try again, to love again. But pain and hope are not enemies. They coexist. You can hurt and still be brave. You can ache and still reach. You can feel grief and still smile when sunlight touches your skin. Let go of the idea that pain must vanish before life can begin. You're already living, even here, even now. Hope doesn't mean pretending you're fine. It means believing this moment isn't the end of your story. It's one page, and you get to keep writing. Pain is not a problem to solve. Presence is the healer. You may be looking for answers, for clarity, for a shift, for that moment when everything inside finally quiets. But healing doesn't arrive as fireworks. It arrives as presence, a single breath where you're no longer fighting yourself, a pause where you don't abandon what hurts, a moment when your inner voice softens, even a little. That's healing. It's not always something you feel as it's happening. Sometimes you look back and realize, I didn't run from that moment. I stayed. That staying was enough. That staying was everything. Don't wait for pain to end before you begin again. We often delay our lives waiting for the pain to pass. I'll love again when this is gone. I'll trust myself when I've fixed it. I'll try again when I'm not hurting anymore. But pain does not have to leave for life to continue. It can walk beside you, quietly, respectfully, as you take small steps into joy, into breath, into self-forgiveness. You are allowed to rebuild with the ache still present. You are allowed to laugh while healing. You are allowed to rest before it's all resolved. Pain is part of the scenery now, but it is not the whole horizon. Let yourself live. Small moments of peace count. You don't need to meditate for hours. You don't need to transcend anything. You don't need a breakthrough to be valid. Sometimes healing sounds like a sigh. Sometimes it's a single tear after days of numbness. Sometimes It's drinking water and noticing how it feels in your throat. These moments matter. They're not just little things. They are the texture of change. They are the foundation of your return to yourself. Don't overlook them. Honor them. Let your healing be quiet, slow, unglamorous. Let it be real. What you've done is enough for today. Healing asks for effort, but not effort without mercy. You've done enough for today if you breathed when you wanted to shut down. You stayed when you wanted to flee. You forgave yourself once, even briefly. You remembered you are still here. That is enough. You are allowed to stop reaching, just for now. To be held instead of holding. To exhale the weight of always trying to feel better. Rest here. Let today be enough. Let your presence be the medicine and your pain just a part of the process, not the whole of who you are. Pain is not a problem to solve. You don't have to be healed to be whole. There's a myth we carry deep in our bones, that we must be healed before we can be seen, that we must be fixed before we can be loved, that we must arrive at some perfect version of ourselves before we're allowed to begin again. But you don't have to be healed to be whole. You already are, even with pain, even with scars, even with questions that still tremble in your chest. Wholeness is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of awareness, the kind that says, this too is part of me, and I don't need to abandon myself anymore. Making peace with what still hurts. Not everything needs to be solved. Some wounds are ancient, some aches are rooted in places you can't name, and still, they don't disqualify you from peace, from joy, from rest. Sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is stop fighting your pain and make space beside it. To say, you may stay, but you don't get to run my life. You are not my identity. You are just something I carry, and I will carry you kindly. This is not resignation. It's liberation, a new way to relate to pain. From this point forward, your pain may not vanish, but it can evolve. It can become less of a shadow and more of a signal. It can become less of a verdict and more of a companion. You will no longer ask, how do I get rid of this? Instead, you will ask, how can I sit with this more gently? How can I still live, even with this ache? What part of me is finally ready to be seen? And from those questions, your life expands. Not because the pain ended, but because your relationship to it changed. That is healing. Closing this chapter, not the conversation. As we close this chapter, nothing is fixed, and that's okay. You didn't come here to be erased. You came here to be met. You've breathed with your pain. You've sat with your resistance. You've touched the places you used to avoid. And maybe, just maybe, you've begun to trust yourself again. Let that trust carry you forward. Let it walk beside your wounds. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming. And you are already whole. This is not the end of pain. This is the end of fighting it. Welcome to peace, not the absence of pain, but the presence of you. You don't have to prove you're okay. There is a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from pretending you're fine when you're not. It's the tiredness of performing normalcy, of smiling when your chest feels hollow, of saying, I'm good, when everything inside you says, please, ask again. You've carried this role for so long, the strong one, the quiet one, the one who keeps it together, and maybe it helped you survive. Maybe it earned you lover, at least the illusion of it, but now you're allowed to let it go. You don't have to prove you're okay. You don't have to convince anyone that you're over it, through it, above it. You only have to be real. The mask that no longer fits. There was a time when the mask fit perfectly. It helped you get through hard days. It kept questions at bay. It gave people a version of you they could handle. But now, it feels tight. It cracks around the edges. It no longer matches the ache beneath your surface. That's not failure. That's growth. The mask once kept you safe. But safety is no longer the same as hiding. You've outgrown the need to seem perfect. You're not here to impress. You're here to be. So breathe. Let the mask slip. Let the world see something softer, not for their sake but for yours. What if you didn't have to pretend? What if you stopped trying to explain yourself? What if you let the silence speak for you? What if you allowed your eyes to show what your words can't? What if, just once, you said, "I'm not okay, and I don't need to be. I just need to be held." And if no one else can hold you, then let yourself hold you. Place a hand on your heart. Feel what's real without trying to fix it. You don't need to have the right words. You don't need to sound wise or calm. You only need to be true. And right now, the truth might be, "I'm tired of hiding." Let that truth breathe. Let it stretch out. Let it finally rest. You don't have to prove you're okay. Emotional honesty is not a burden. There's a fear many of us carry, that if we show our real feelings, we'll be too much, too sensitive, too heavy, too inconvenient. So we package our sadness. We wrap our anxiety in jokes. We reduce our heartbreak to polite sentences. And yet inside we ache to be understood. Here's the truth. Emotional honesty is not a burden. It is a gift, not a dramatic performance, not a demand for saving. Just realness. It gives others permission to meet you, not your mask. It gives you permission to breathe deeper. You are not exhausting. You are expressing. You are not too much. You are enough as you are. The stories we tell to feel acceptable. We create stories to make our feelings sound reasonable. Instead of simply saying, "I'm sad," we say, "I guess I'm just tired. I've been busy lately." Instead of, "I'm hurt," we say, "I'm probably overreacting. It's not a big deal." But your feelings don't need to pass through a filter to be valid. You don't need to shrink them to be palatable. You don't need to wrap them in logic to earn space. What you feel is real. You're allowed to say, "I'm not okay," without a follow-up. You're allowed to be emotional without being explained. You are allowed to take up spacefully, rawly, honestly. And if someone cannot hold your truth, it doesn't mean your truth is too heavy. It means they are not your container. You are not too much. They were too small. Letting softness replace performance. You've performed strength for so long. You've stood tall when you wanted to collapse. You've smiled through grief. You've answered, "I'm fine," with a practiced ease that felt like survival. But you don't need to perform strength to be strong. Softness is strength. Tears are strength. Saying, "I need help," is strength. Let yourself be soft here. Let yourself breathe, not as someone holding it all together, but as someone ready to fall apart a little, in safety. You're not breaking. You're being honest. Honest enough to stop pretending. Brave enough to stop proving. This is not weakness. This is freedom. You don't have to prove you're okay. What you hide keeps you lonely. You may wonder why, even in a room full of people, you feel alone. You may talk, smile, contribute, and still feel like no one truly sees you. And maybe they don't. Not because they don't care, but because you've never let them meet the part of you that needs the most love. Not the put-together version, not the capable, calm, resilient version, the soft one, the scared one, the one who sometimes just wants to fall into someone's arms and say, "Please hold me, I don't know how to keep doing this." That version isn't shameful. That version is sacred. And the longer you hide it, the longer you remain unseen. True connection doesn't come from being impressive. It comes from being honest. Vulnerability invites belonging. There is a myth that says, if I reveal too much, they'll leave. If I show my fear, I'll be abandoned. If I open my heart, it will break. But in truth, vulnerability is not what pushes people away. It's what pulls the right people closer. When you say, "I'm hurting," and someone doesn't flinch. When you admit, "I'm scared," and they stay. That's not weakness. That's intimacy. Real love cannot reach you if you keep wearing the armor. It cannot find you through rehearsed lines and curated smiles. Take the armor off, even just a little. Not for everyone, but for someone, or even just for yourself. That softening is how belonging begins. You can tell the truth quietly. You don't need to shout your pain. You don't need to fall apart loudly to be real. Telling the truth doesn't have to be dramatic. It can sound like, "I'm struggling today. I don't have the energy to pretend. I'm not sure what I need, but I know I need something." Your truth doesn't need to be poetic to be powerful. It only needs to be yours. Let go of the pressure to say it perfectly. There's no right way to be honest, only honest ways. And when your voice trembles, or when you don't know what to say, the silence that follows can speak louder than any sentence. It says, "I'm not hiding anymore." Soft is not weak, it's real. Somewhere along the way, soft became a dirty word. We were told to be strong, to toughen up, to keep going. And we did. But in doing so, we built walls that kept everyone out, including ourselves. Soft doesn't mean fragile. It means human. It means alive. It means you still care enough to feel. Let yourself be soft now, not because you've given up, but because you've finally remembered you don't have to prove you're okay in order to be loved. You just have to be willing to be seen, exactly as you are. You don't have to prove you're okay. Rest is not laziness, it's wisdom. You've been taught to keep going, to hold it together, to show up. Even when your insides are unraveling, you've performed strength so well that even your exhaustion learned how to smile. But here's something no one may have told you. Rest is not weakness. Rest is what keeps you from becoming numb. Rest is what allows you to return not to performance, but to truth. You don't need to earn your rest. You don't need to wait until the breakdown. You are allowed to pause before you fall apart. You are allowed to lie down in the middle of the day. You are allowed to say, "I need less right now," and the world will keep spinning. But inside you, something will finally stop gripping. You don't have to shine all the time. You don't have to be radiant right now. You don't have to be inspiring, resilient, or full of grace. You don't even have to be hopeful. There are days when the light dims, when your voice shakes, when your breath feels thin and the world looks gray. That is not failure. That is being alive. Even the sun sets. Even the moon goes dark. Your worth is not dependent on your brightness. You are not here to perform glow. You are here to be present. Even when the light is low, let go of proving, even just for one day. What would it feel like to take one whole day off from pretending? No smiling unless it's real. No pushing through when your body begs you to rest. No, "I'm fine," when you're clearly not. Just one day. To be honest, to say no without guilt, to cry without explanation, to not have a plan. What if you gave yourself that? What if healing wasn't about constantly working on yourself, but about removing everything you were never meant to carry? You don't need to become someone new. You need space to be the someone you've always been. Underneath the proving, beyond the mask, that self is still here. The exhale you've been waiting for. There's an inhale that tightens the chest. It's the one that holds anxiety, obligation, appearance. You've lived in that inhale for so long. But right now is the moment you get to exhale. Fully, completely, without apology. Let it go. The pressure, the posture, the mask, the story. Let yourself feel what it's like to breathe out without rushing to breathe in again. Let the exhale say, "I'm done performing. I'm done pretending. I am allowed to just be." And feel your body, even just slightly, begin to believe it. You don't have to prove you're okay. You are still growing even in the dark. Not all growth is visible. Some of it happens silently, like roots under frozen soil. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like doubt, like stillness, like questions that never seem to answer themselves. But that doesn't mean you're not evolving. You are. Every time you choose not to abandon yourself, even when it's hard, you grow. Every time you sit with what hurts, instead of numbing it, you grow. Every time you say, "This is where I am," instead of, "This is who I should be," you grow. Don't measure your healing by how light it feels. Sometimes the deepest healing feels heavy at first, because it's honest, and honesty takes courage. Not having the answers is also a path. You don't need to know where this is going. You don't need to see the map. You don't need to have a timeline or a plan. In fact, needing to figure it all out is often a trauma response, a coping mechanism to feel in control when life feels like a storm. But storms don't need maps. They pass through, and so do you. What if you let this part of your journey be messy? What if "I don't know" became a place of rest instead of panic? You are allowed to wander. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to be a question. Some of the most beautiful chapters begin in confusion. Emotional safety begins with you. It's natural to want safety in others, to long for someone who sees the real you and stays, to want reassurance, validation, comfort. But emotional safety doesn't begin outside of you. It begins when you stop gaslighting your own experience, when you stop saying, "I shouldn't feel this way," when you stop judging your sadness, mocking your fear, silencing your anger. Safety begins when your inner voice softens, when it says, "I believe you. I don't need you to be okay before I love you. I'm not leaving." Oh, that's the beginning of trust, not with the world, but with yourself. The days you fall apart are sacred. You don't need to be composed every day. There are sacred lessons in the days when nothing makes sense. When you cry for no reason, when your body feels heavy and your voice too tired to speak. These are not broken days. They are honest ones. These are the days when the soul takes off its armor, when the pain you've hidden finds its way into light, when you remember you are not a machine, you are a mystery. Let yourself fall apart sometimes. Tears water the parts of you that have been dry for too long. And when you finally rest in the mess of it all, you may notice you're still breathing. You're still here. You're still whole even now. You don't have to prove you're okay. You are allowed to be seen as you are. You may have grown used to hiding in plain sight, smiling in photos while silently aching, succeeding on the outside while unraveling within. But beneath all the roles and responses, there is someone who longs to be seen without adjusting, without explaining. Let them be seen. You don't need to clean up your feelings before showing them. You don't need to package your story into something beautiful before sharing it. You are allowed to say, "This is me right now. This is the part of me that's raw, unsure, unfinished." End of. And if the world can't hold that, let yourself hold it. Because your truth doesn't need an audience to be valid. It only needs a witness. Start with you. The myth of healed enough. There is a quiet belief that keeps many people trapped, that you must be healed enough before you're lovable, before you speak your truth, before you take up space. But healing is not a finish line. You do not graduate into worthiness. You don't earn love through perfection. You are not a project. You are a person, and people are allowed to be complicated, in progress, tender. Let go of the idea that you need to be anything other than who you are today, even with doubts, even with cracks, especially with cracks, because that's where the light finds you. Honesty feels like relief. There's a deep exhale that follows real honesty. It might not fix your problems, but it frees you from the pressure to pretend. You may notice your shoulders drop, your breath deepens, your inner critic quiets, because finally, you've stopped performing. Even if only for a moment, you've let the truth breathe. It might sound like, "I'm overwhelmed. I'm grieving something I haven't named yet. I want to be held, but don't know how to ask." This is the kind of truth that doesn't ask for advice. It just asks to be spoken. And once it is, you don't need to carry it alone anymore. Softening is not surrendering. Sometimes when we soften, we fear we're giving up. But there is a difference between surrender and softness. Giving up says, "I'm done. I can't feel anymore." Softening says, "I'm done pretending I don't feel." Giving up says, "Nothing matters." Softening says, "This matters so much, I need to feel it fully." You are allowed to soften without collapsing, to bend without breaking, to rest without quitting. Softening is how we begin again, without needing to start over. It is the most courageous kind of stillness. It means you trust life enough to feel it, even now. Even here, you don't have to prove you're okay. You can heal without performing it. Healing has become something we feel pressured to display, to turn into productivity, to post, to prove. We say things like, "I'm working on myself. I'm getting better. I'm in such a good place now." And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's not honesty, it's armor, because underneath we're still grieving, still triggered, still figuring it out. Let this be your reminder. You don't have to show your progress to validate it. You don't need to narrate your healing to make it real. Some healing is loud, some healing is quiet. Some happens in retreat, in silence, in messy little moments no one sees. And all of it counts, especially the parts you're still not sure how to talk about. You can breathe without justifying it. You are allowed to take up space without explaining why you need it. You are allowed to rest without proving how tired you are. You are allowed to slow down without comparing your pace to anyone else's. There is nothing noble about ignoring your needs. There is no badge for holding it in. Try this. Take a breath before you're overwhelmed. Cancel a plan before you break down. Set a boundary before you reach resentment. Let these be your medicine, not because you've earned them, but because you're human. No explanation necessary. You don't have to keep going just to look strong. There is a false strength the world often praises. The person who never cries. The one who keeps pushing through. The one who does it all without breaking. But real strength is quieter, more honest. It says, "I need to pause. I can't carry this alone. I'm not okay, and I don't want to fake it." You are not weak for resting. You are wise for noticing the edge before you collapse. You don't have to keep going just because others expect you to. You don't have to be the strong one all the time. You get to be held, too. Presence is the proof. You don't have to prove anything, not to anyone, not even to yourself. Your healing is not a performance. It's in the way you keep showing up. It's in the breath you just took. It's in the moment you chose not to abandon yourself again. You don't need more affirmation. You need presence. To sit quietly with yourself and say, "This hurts, and I'm here. I'm tired, and I'm still trying. I don't know the way forward, but I'm not leaving." That is your proof. That is your power. That is enough. You don't have to prove you're okay. You are already enough. You've tried so hard to become enough. Enough for the people who left. Enough for the roles you were given. Enough to finally feel safe inside your own skin. But what if you never needed to become anything? What if you already are? Not because you've healed every part of your story, but because you are showing up to it now. Because you are still here. Because you are trying softly, steadily, bravely to be real. That is enough. You don't need a certificate to rest. You don't need proof to be seen. You don't need to reach a milestone to be worthy of gentleness. This breath is enough. This moment is enough. You are enough. The end of performance is the beginning of peace. Peace doesn't come when everything is fixed. It arrives when you stop pretending you're not in pain. When you stop editing your voice just to be heard. When you stop curating your feelings just to be liked. When you stop twisting your truth just to stay safe. When you are honest, not dramatic, not loud, just honest. Peace doesn't run away. It meets you there. It sits beside your trembling. It holds your unspoken. It welcomes your softest "I'm tired" as sacred. This is not performance. This is presence, and presence is peace. Let it be easy to be you again. What if you stopped trying so hard? What if healing didn't have to be another task? What if you didn't have to manage your image? What if today it was enough to be soft, silent, unsure, and still worthy? Let yourself return to ease, to the version of you that doesn't over-explain, to the breath that doesn't rush, to the heart that doesn't hustle. Let it be easy to be you again. Not perfect, not fixed, just honest. And in that ease, you may find a freedom that effort never gave you. A freedom born not of control, but of finally letting go. Closing without closing off. This chapter may end, but your softness does not. You don't have to pick the mask back up after reading these words. You don't have to return to pretending. Let something stay open. Let a single breath feel different. Let your voice be a little more real. Let your presence, your honest, unpolished presence, be enough. There is nothing more to prove. You are allowed to be as you are, not as you appear, not as you perform, but as you are. And as you are is beautiful. Let that be your truth now. Let that be your beginning. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. There comes a moment in every healing journey when you're invited to let go. Not because you've erased the memory, not because you've moved on, but because you're ready to carry it differently. Letting go isn't forgetting. It isn't pretending it never happened. It isn't denying how deeply you cared, how deeply it hurt. Letting go means this: you are ready to stop carrying the weight as proof that it mattered. You are ready to live without needing to relive it every day. You are ready to honor the past without becoming it. This is not erasure. This is evolution. And it begins here, in this breath, in this soft choice to unclench slowly, tenderly from what has already gone. Why we hold on so long? We hold on to pain for many reasons. Because it connects us to someone we loved. Because it gives structure to chaos. Because it became familiar, and familiar feels safe. Sometimes the pain is all we have left of a season, of a person, of a self we used to be. We fear that letting go means we're saying, it didn't matter. It wasn't real. I've forgotten, but you haven't forgotten. You remember, in your breath, in the way certain songs still sting, in the silence that follows their name, in the way your body still tenses in the places they used to stand. You remember. Letting go doesn't erase the memory. It simply makes space for something new to arrive. Something you don't have to grip so tightly just to feel whole. Letting go is a door, not a goodbye. It may feel like letting go is a final farewell. But what if it's a doorway? A passage through which your pain transforms, rather than lingers. A space where your past no longer traps you, but teaches you. Letting go means you're no longer asking that old wound to keep proving itself. You're no longer forcing the same story to keep playing, just so you can keep feeling it. You're choosing now. You're allowing movement. You're saying, I still remember, I still care, but I won't carry this pain like a flag anymore. Not because it didn't change you, but because it already has. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go often feels like loss because it is. When you let go, you don't just release the pain. You release the identity it gave you, the story you built around it, the familiarity it offered even if it hurt. There is a strange grief in that. You're not just saying goodbye to what happened. You're saying goodbye to the part of you that formed in response. The version of you who guarded their heart because they had to. The one who never cried because no one ever listened. The one who carried a bitterness so carefully it almost felt like purpose. Letting go feels like a death, but it's not the end. It's a return. You're returning to the you that existed before the wound. Or maybe more honestly, you're meeting the version of you that can finally exist now that the wound is no longer in charge. Some things are meant to change shape, not stay. We often try to preserve experiences exactly as they were, to hold on to a feeling, a person, a time in our life, like pressing flowers in a book. But life doesn't honor stillness that way. It breathes, it stretches, it evolves. Some things aren't meant to be held tightly. They're meant to move through you, to touch you, to shape you, and then to go. What stays is not the form, but the impact. You don't need the weight of grief to remember what mattered. You don't need the sharpness of loss to prove it was real. The memory remains, even after the emotion fades. And that's the quiet miracle of healing. The ache goes, but the love stays. When letting go feels like betrayal, there's a tender fear in letting go. If I release this, am I betraying it? If I stop grieving, Does that mean it didn't matter? If I stop holding on, will I forget? But letting go is not betrayal. It is trust. It's trusting that what's true will remain. That you can honor something without holding it in your fists. That you can carry love without clinging to pain. Letting go says, this mattered deeply, and I trust that it doesn't need to hurt me anymore to stay meaningful. That's not forgetting. That's remembering, with softness. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go makes space for what's next. When your hands are full of the past, there's no room to hold what's arriving. That's the quiet truth no one tells you. Letting go is not just about release. It's about making space. Space for peace that doesn't demand proof. Space for joy that doesn't need permission. Space for love that isn't laced with fear. But to create that space, something must leave. Not because it didn't matter, but because it has already given you what it came to give. What if letting go isn't abandonment, but completion? What if this is your soul finally saying, I've felt this long enough. I've honored it fully. I'm ready to let it live in memory, not in my body. And what if that's okay? You're not leaving it behind, you're carrying it differently. We think of letting go as leaving something behind, but really, it's changing the way we carry it. It no longer rides on our shoulders. It no longer burns in our chest. It no longer speaks for us in moments that have nothing to do with the past. Instead, it settles. It softens. It becomes quiet enough to walk beside us without leading the way. You don't forget. You just stop gripping it. You don't lose it. You simply stop bleeding from it. And that's not selfish. It's sacred. You can hold love without holding the pain. You can let go of the hurt and keep the love. You can release the memory that wounded you and still honor what was beautiful in it. Because pain doesn't preserve love. It only distorts it. When you carry pain too long, love gets wrapped in fear. It becomes conditional, anxious, protective. But when you let the pain go, what's left is purer, softer, truer. Not because you're trying to reclaim the past, but because you're ready to feel love again without breaking under its weight. You're allowed to love what hurt and still choose peace. You're allowed to look back with grace and say, this shaped me, but it no longer defines me. That is freedom. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. You are stronger than you look because of what you've released. People may never know what you've let go of. They may never see the weight you carried for years. They may never understand how hard it was to finally set it down. But you know what it cost you to stay silent. You know how long you held on, hoping something might return. You know how many nights you whispered just a little longer before you were brave enough to say, it's time. Letting go is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful choices a human heart can make. You didn't give up. You gave yourself back, and that's the kind of strength no one can measure from the outside. You let go bit by bit. Letting go doesn't have to be a dramatic moment. It can happen slowly, like sunlight fading over water, like a knot loosening without force, like an old song you used to cry to becoming just a song again. You may let go over 100 quiet mornings, or one ordinary breath. You may not even realize it's happening, until one day the memory returns and you feel no sharpness, no spiral, only stillness. That is letting go, not forgetting, just no longer bleeding. The horizon that was hidden beneath your holding. When your eyes are fixed behind you, you miss what's ahead. Letting go turns you gently back toward the horizon, toward what still waits to be discovered, toward the part of your life that hasn't happened yet. There are people you haven't met, places you haven't touched, moments that will make your chest ache in a whole new way, not from grief, but from wonder. But you can't reach them with your hands full of yesterday. This is not about rushing forward. It's about trusting that there is more. Letting go doesn't mean move on. It means make space, because life still wants to meet you. Your nervous system feels the release first. Sometimes you don't notice in your thoughts. You notice in your body. Your shoulders lower, your jaw unclenches, your breath moves all the way into your belly. You stop bracing for something that already ended. That's letting go. It's not always emotional. It's physiological. Your body knows when something is no longer a threat. And when that knowing settles in, everything softens. This is not a trick. It's biology. It's safety. It's the deep wisdom of your body saying, "You made it. You can stop guarding now. You can rest. Let it rest. Let yourself rest." Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go is trusting without proof. Sometimes we hold on simply because we don't know what happens if we don't. We think, if I let go, I'll lose control. If I let go, I won't be safe. If I let go, it might all fall apart. But holding on is often just fear disguised as caution. It's the body saying, I don't trust what's next, so I'll cling to what's familiar even if it hurts. Letting go doesn't mean having certainty. It means learning to live without guarantees. It means whispering, I don't know what's on the other side of this, but I trust myself enough to meet it. That's not recklessness. That's bravery. You don't need to know the outcome. You only need to believe that you will still be you, strong, soft, capableno, matter what happens next. Control is heavy. Release is light. Control is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, constant calculation, constant effort to hold things in place that were never meant to stay still. Letting go, on the other hand, feels like exhaling after years of holding your breath. It doesn't mean carelessness. It means release. Releasing expectations of how it should have gone. Releasing the urge to rewrite the past. Releasing your grip on what was never yours to hold forever. And in that release, you rise. Because what you thought was grounding you was actually weighing you down. You don't have to carry everything to be grounded. You can float. You can breathe. You can be held by something greater than your own willpower. Sometimes you hold on to who you used to be. Letting go doesn't always mean releasing someone else. Sometimes it means releasing the version of you that was built to survive. The version that never asked for help. The one who kept the peace even when it broke you. The one who worked for love like it was a job. The one who mistook silence for strength. You needed that version. They helped you endure. But you're allowed to become someone new. Someone who rests. Someone who speaks. Someone who sets the thing down before it becomes a burden. You're not erasing who you were. You're expanding into who you're allowed to be now. That's not abandonment. That's evolution. You're allowed to grieve what was good. Letting go becomes complicated when what you're letting go of wasn't all bad. It had sweetness. It had beauty. It had meaning. And now you ask, how do I release this when part of it was everything I ever wanted? The answer is, slowly, with reverence, without pretending it was only pain or only joy. Let yourself feel both. Let yourself cry over the soft moments, even as you open your palms and say, it's time. This is maturity, grieving what was good without needing it to last forever. In order to be real, letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go doesn't mean you're cold. There's a fear that letting go makes you heartless, that walking away, saying no, choosing peace will be mistaken for apathy. But letting go isn't cold. It's warm, quiet courage. It says, I've loved deeply, I've felt fully, I've honored this, and now I release it. It's not a closing of the heart. It's a redirection of love. You're not erasing your care. You're simply choosing where that care belongs now. You're allowed to move on with tenderness. You're allowed to heal without bitterness. You're allowed to say, this meant something, and still walk away with grace. You can love and leave. Sometimes the hardest goodbyes are not to things we hated, but to things we loved that couldn't grow with us. To relationships that were once safe but became small. To dreams that served us, then stopped fitting. To versions of ourselves we worked hard to become, but outgrew. You can love something and still know it's time to go. You can walk away and still honor what was sacred. You can carry gratitude and grief in the same breath. You don't have to choose between love and truth. Letting go is what happens when you let both exist, side by side. There is peace in letting things be. Letting go isn't just about releasing what hurt. Sometimes it's releasing your need to make it make sense. You may never get the apology. You may never know why they left. You may never understand why it happened the way it did. Letting go says, I don't have to understand everything to find peace. It doesn't mean you approve. It doesn't mean you agree. It simply means you're done carrying the burden of figuring it all out. You can live without all the answers. You can breathe without closure. You can still move forward imperfectly, honestly, and whole. When letting go is a new beginning. You may not realize it now, but letting go is not the end of the story. It's the start of the chapter you were always meant to write, where you get to be free, where you get to choose, where you stop living in response to the past and begin responding to what you actually want. Letting go is a doorway, not into forgetting, but into remembering who you were before everything asked you to shrink. This next version of you, it doesn't need the weight. Let it fall, let it float, let it go, and see what rises. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Release is not emptiness, it's presence. Many people are afraid that if they truly let go, there will be nothing left. Just silence, blank space, emptiness. But the truth is, letting go doesn't create absence. It creates room to breathe, room to feel without flinching, room to return to yourself. The quiet after release is not a void. It's presence. It's what remains when the gripping stops, when the proving stops, when the past stops narrating every step forward. And what remains is you, not the version shaped by pain, but the one who now stands beside it without being ruled by it. This is not loss. It is remembering. You can grieve while letting go. Letting go doesn't mean you never cry again. It doesn't mean you've moved on in some tidy, linear way. You can release something and still feel waves of sadness when you remember it. That doesn't mean you're going backward. It means you're human. Tears are not regressions. They're ripples echoes of something that once mattered. You can grieve what you've outgrown. You can cry for what you chose to leave. You can hold space for loss while also walking toward new light. This is the fullness of healing, not choosing between grief and growth, but allowing both to live in the same heart. Letting go is a ceremony. You may never get closure from them, so instead create your own. Make it quiet, make it sacred, make it honest. Write a letter you'll never send. Speak words you never got to say. Burn an old memory in fire or tear it into ash. Let your body feel the release. Let your breath say, I am done holding this the way I used to. Not out of anger, not out of shame, but out of deep reverence for your life and your right to live it without dragging what no longer fits. You can close the door gently and still never forget what stood behind it. Letting go changes how you see. After release, the world begins to look different. Not overnight, not all at once, but gradually you start to see through new eyes. You notice how much energy was tied up in holding on, how many thoughts looped around what you couldn't change, how many moments were spent waiting for something that wasn't returning. And then something shifts. You walk a little lighter. You smile without forcing it. You make decisions not out of fear, but from clarity. You stop trying to go back. You begin to shape what's next. Letting go changes you because it returns you to yourself. And that is the most powerful reunion of all. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. The final permission. Maybe what you've been waiting for all along isn't time or clarity or even healing, but permission. Permission to set it down, to stop rehearsing it, to stop defining yourself by it. So here it is. You are allowed to let go. You don't have to keep holding it to prove that it mattered. You don't have to relive it to validate your pain. You don't have to carry the memory like a wound to honor the love or the loss. Letting go is not betrayal. It's a blessing. a quiet nod to your past that says, "You shaped me, you mattered, and now I choose to carry you in peace." There will still be days. Letting go doesn't mean you'll never look back. There will be days. Days when a song reopens the memory. Days when a scent returns a season. Days when you ache without knowing why. And that's okay. You can look back without going back. You can remember without reattaching. You can feel it and still stay grounded in your now. Let those moments come and go like waves. You are not failing when they rise. You are healing by letting them pass through. You're not starting over, you're starting forward. Sometimes it feels like letting go means beginning again from nothing. But you are not empty. You are not erased. You're starting forward. With everything you've learned, with the strength that staying taught you, with the softness that release uncovered. This new beginning doesn't demand reinvention. It invites reintegration. You are not someone else. You are more yourself than you've ever been. You are not at square one. You are standing on sacred ground, the ground you made by choosing peace. Letting go is how you come home. You thought you were letting go of something out there, but truly, you were letting go of everything that kept you from being here. In this breath, in this body, in this moment, this is your return, not to what was, but to what is, to yourself, to the part of you that never needed to prove anything, that never needed to hold pain like a trophy, that never needed to perform healing to deserve peace. You are home now, and that's what letting go always leads to. Not forgetting, but finally remembering who you were beneath the weight. Welcome back. You can be whole and still hurt. There's a quiet lie that healing culture often whispers, that once you're whole, you won't hurt anymore. That pain is the evidence of brokenness. That if you're feeling sad, anxious, angry, or lost, you must still be incomplete. But that's not truth. That's pressure. You can be whole and still have wounds. You can be centered and still feel the sting. You can carry pain and still be free. Because wholeness is not the absence of pain, it's the presence of self. It's the moment you stop running from the ache and start living alongside it. Not as a victim of it, not as a servant to it, but as someone who sees pain as part of your weather, not your identity. You are not waiting to be pain-free to be fully alive. You already are. Wholeness is not a final destination. You don't arrive at wholeness like a prize. You return to it, again and again. You remember it in small moments, in the breath you took after telling the truth, in the silence that followed a kind boundary, in the tear that fell without shame. Wholeness isn't something you reach, it's something you uncover beneath the noise. It's not about being flawless. It's about being present with all of it. The beauty, the ache, the confusion, the calm. You are not broken because you feel. You are not unfinished because you still cry. You are whole because you are here, and you are honest, and you have stopped pretending that realness disqualifies you. Pain doesn't cancel your light. There will be days when pain feels loud, when grief sits heavy in your chest, when the past brushes against your skin like it just happened, but pain doesn't erase your light. You are still kind. You are still growing. You are still full of wonder and wisdom and wild tenderness. Light and dark do not compete inside you. They coexist. They teach each other. They complete each other. The day doesn't erase the stars. The stars don't deny the sun. You can hurt and still glow. You can fall and still rise. You can weep and still be worthy. Wholeness makes space for all of it. You can be whole and still hurt. Feeling deeply doesn't mean you're falling apart. You've been taught that feeling too much is a flaw, that if your emotions swell, you must be unstable. That sensitivity means fragility. But here's what no one told you. Feeling deeply is not falling apart. It's falling inward. It's your heart stretching to hold more truth, more memory, more care. The tears that come aren't weakness. They're the body's way of releasing what words couldn't carry. The anger isn't failure. It's protection. The fear isn't regression. It's the echo of a place that still longs to feel safe. You're not crumbling. You're expanding. You're allowed to hurt without fixing it. So much of healing culture centers around solutions. Feel bad? Here's how to stop. Still grieving? Try this. Still triggered? That means something's wrong. But what if nothing's wrong? What if your pain isn't a puzzle, but a presence? Something that doesn't want to be solved, just witnessed. You're allowed to say, "This hurts," without rushing to stop it. You're allowed to let the ache breathe beside you, not because you're indulging it, but because you've finally learned how to sit with it. This is maturity. This is self-respect. This is wholeness. You can be in progress and still complete. There's a strange contradiction in healing. You can be growing and still be whole. It's not either or. You don't have to wait until you've arrived to live. You don't have to master every lesson to be worthy of love. Imagine a tree. In spring, it's full of blossom. In winter, bare and still. In summer, heavy with fruit. In autumn, shedding its brilliance. Which version is the real tree? All of them. And so it is with you. Whether you are blooming, falling, reaching, or resting, you are whole. Even while you're becoming more of yourself. When wholeness looks like rest, sometimes wholeness doesn't look like achievement, or joy, or confidence. Sometimes wholeness looks like stillness, saying no without guilt, not answering every message, letting yourself lie down even though the to-do list is full, feeling something deeply and not explaining it to anyone. This is not avoidance. This is sovereignty. You are allowed to rest in your own presence, without proving it has value. You are allowed to take up space with your breath alone. You are not a machine. You are a miracle. Even when you're quiet, even when you pause, you can be whole and still hurt. You are not a contradiction. You are a whole spectrum. You can be grateful for your life and still grieve what never happened. You can love someone deeply and still feel the need to let them go. You can believe in your healing and still have days where you ache like the wound just opened. You are not inconsistent. You are complex. This is the nature of wholeness. It makes space for contradiction. You are joy and sorrow, hope and hesitation, forgiveness and boundary, stillness and motion. You are allowed to be more than one thing at a time. And when you stop trying to make sense, you start to feel whole in a new, richer way. Wholeness isn't clarity, it's honesty. Wholeness doesn't mean you never need help. You don't lose wholeness when you ask for help. You don't become weak when you say, "I can't do this alone." In fact, the people who know they are whole are often the ones most willing to receive. They no longer measure their value by how much they carry. They no longer wear independence like armor. Instead, they let someone hold a corner of the weight, not because they are broken, but because they are wise enough to know we are not meant to heal in isolation. You can be whole and still lean, still cry, still whisper, "Can you stay with me while I breathe through this?" That's not lack, that's love. The body can hurt and still be holy. You may still feel echoes of trauma in your chest, a tightness in your throat, a pit in your stomach that speaks before you do. This doesn't mean you failed. This doesn't mean you're not healed enough. It means you are a body that remembers. And remembering isn't wrong. Your body is not betraying you by feeling, it's loving you by trying to protect you. The pain it holds is not shameful, it's sacred. It's the imprint of a story it didn't get to finish safely. Now, through your breath, through your presence, that story gets to soften. You are not at war with your body anymore. You are returning to it as home. Self-doubt doesn't disprove your wholeness. There will be days you doubt everything, your worth, your choices, even the fact that healing is happening at all. That doubt does not mean you've regressed. It means you're alive in the middle of change. Doubt is not the opposite of healing. It is part of healing. It shows you where trust still wants to grow. It points you toward the places that need your kindness most. You are not less whole when you doubt. You are more human, And wholeness is not about always knowing, it's about always returning to breath, to presence, to truth. Even when you feel uncertain, especially then, you can be whole and still hurt. Waves don't break you, they shape you. Your emotions are not setbacks, they're tides. They rise, they fall, they swell without warning, then recede just as quietly. This is the rhythm of being human. Not broken, not unstable, not too much, just human. Wholeness isn't found in still waters. It's found in learning how to float when the waves come. When you say, I am still whole, even while I cry. I am still worthy, even while I shake. I am still enough, even in this moment of unraveling. You are not here to control the ocean. You are here to remember you were made to move with it. You are not drowning. You are remembering how to stay. Grounded doesn't mean unshakable. Sometimes we think being grounded means nothing ever rattles us, that we should never get overwhelmed, never react, never fall. But being grounded isn't about standing still like a statue. It's about having roots. It means when the wind comes, you bend but don't break. You feel but you don't flee. It means trusting that even when the storm moves through, you'll still be here, present, breathing, whole. Let yourself sway. Let yourself move. Let yourself tremble. That's not losing your ground. That's learning how to grow with it. You don't have to rise above everything. Spiritual bypassing tells you to transcend, to rise above, to vibrate higher. But wholeness doesn't ask you to escape the human experience. It asks you to befriend it, to sit with the discomfort, to feel the sadness fully, to acknowledge the rage, the fear, the achy, and stay. You're allowed to be spiritual and still feel sorrow. You're allowed to believe in light and still sit in the dark. You're allowed to be whole and still cry on the floor. You don't need to be above it. You only need to be here for it, fully, tenderly, truthfully. There is no final form of you. One of the greatest myths of healing is that you'll eventually arrive, and that you'll wake up one day, finally healed, finally whole, finally untouched by the mess of being alive. But the truth is, you are not a destination. You are a process, a season, a becoming. There is no final form of you, only layers unfolding, only truths deepening, only love growing wider than it was yesterday. Even the strongest version of you will still cry sometimes. Even the wisest version of you will still forget. Even the most peaceful version of you will still feel chaos. And all of it belongs. You don't have to arrive. You just have to allow. You can be whole and still hurt. Wholeness welcomes imperfection. You do not need to be flawless to be whole. You do not need to have it all together. You do not need to smile through everything just to be seen as healed. Wholeness has nothing to do with perfection. It has everything to do with honesty. When you cry and you don't hide it, that's wholeness. When you feel insecure but still show up, that's wholeness. When you make space for all of you without editing, without shame, that is wholeness in action. The cracks are not flaws. They're invitations. They say, you are still real. You are still here. You don't have to be polished to be loved. You are a nuvaven now, especially now. Showing up is more powerful than feeling better. There's a quiet pressure to feel good all the time, to be positive, to choose light, to turn every hard moment into a breakthrough. But some days, the victory is simply this. You showed up. You got out of bed. You breathed through the ache. You let yourself feel instead of going numb. You didn't fake a smile when your soul needed quiet. You don't have to feel good to be doing well. You are not measured by your mood. You are not failing because joy feels far away. You are still worthy, still healing, still whole even when the light inside flickers. You're not here to be impressive. You're here to be present. It's okay if the hurt still visits. Some days, pain visits again, not as loud as before, not as sharp, but just enough to stir the dust in your chest. Maybe it's a memory. a sudden wave of longing, a silent sadness that rises for no clear reason, and your first thought might be, I thought I was past this. I thought I healed this already. But healing is not amnesia, and progress is not linear. Even after deep healing, pain can visit like an old friend, not to stay, but to remind you how far you've come. You are not back at the beginning. You are simply revisiting with more capacity, more compassion, more breath. Let it come, let it go, and remember, you are still whole. Your wholeness is not conditional. You are not whole because of what you've overcome. You are not whole because of what you've fixed. You are not whole because others see you that way. You are whole because you exist, because you are breath and body, shadow and light, because you are made of everything you've felt and everything you've softened through. Even when you're tired, even when you're grieving, even when you feel disconnected, wholeness remains. It is not earned. It is not lost. It is simply remembered. And today, you are remembering. One breath at a time, you can be whole and still hurt. Emotional depth is not a liability, it's wisdom. There is a richness in you that comes from all you've felt. You may not have chosen every wound, but you've earned the insight that only deep feeling brings. Your emotional depth is not weakness, it's intelligence. The kind that notices what others overlook, the kind that hears the quiet between words, the kind that understands pain without explanation. This is your gift. You feel deeply, not because you're fragile, but because your soul was never meant to stay at the surface. You're not here to float through life. You're here to live fully, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. You don't need to analyze everything you feel. When discomfort arises, the mind rushes to interpret. Why do I feel this way? What triggered this? What does this say about me? But not every feeling is a code to be cracked. Not every ache needs a theory. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is simply let the emotion move through you without dissecting it. Feelings are not puzzles. They are weather systems. You don't need to name every cloud. You just need to let it pass. Let yourself feel without turning it into a problem. You are not your explanation. You are your experience. And experience is enough. Wholeness feels quiet. You may expect wholeness to feel like fireworks, like euphoria, like confidence pulsing through your veins. But often, it feels like stillness, like silence that doesn't scare you anymore, like exhaling without resistance, like no longer checking every corner of the room for danger. It's subtle, not loud, not dramatic, just a sense of being okay, even when you're not great. You start to realize, I don't have to prove anything. I don't need to explain why I'm tired. I'm just here, and that's enough. This is wholeness. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of self-rejection. Rest can be revolutionary. When you've been surviving for so long, rest feels foreign, unfamiliar, maybe even wrong. But what if rest is the most radical way to return to wholeness? Not sleep, necessarily though that matters, but soul rest, the kind that comes from not needing to pretend, the kind that allows you to pause without guilt, the kind that reminds your body, you are not in danger anymore. Let yourself rest. Let yourself slow down. Let yourself be quiet without filling the silence. You're not falling behind. You're finally catching up to yourself. This too is healing. This too is wholeness. You can be whole and still hurt. Wholeness makes room for joy even now. Sometimes, when you've been hurting for a long time, joy feels suspicious, like something you haven't earned yet, like something that could disappear at any moment. But you don't have to wait for the pain to leave before you let joy in. You don't have to be finished healing to smile honestly. You don't have to resolve everything to feel alive. Joy does not require permission. It requires presence. It shows up in small ways. The warmth of morning light on your skin, a song that makes your chest rise, laughter you didn't see coming. These are not interruptions to your healing. They are part of it. You are allowed to feel good without explaining why. You are allowed to be okay while still holding grief. You are allowed to open again slowly, tenderly. Even if it's only for a moment, let it happen. Let yourself have joy. Forgiveness isn't about the past, it's about freedom. There may still be stories you hold about what they did, what you lost, what never came, and that holding feels righteous. It feels like justice. It feels like protection. But sometimes, holding on turns into a cage. Forgiveness isn't about saying it was okay. It's about saying, I will not let this define the rest of my life. I will not keep drinking the poison to prove they were wrong. I choose myself over this memory. Yes, you can forgive and still keep your boundaries. You can forgive and still remember. But when you forgive not to forget, but to free, you make space inside yourself. And in that space, peace grows. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. You are already the person you were looking for. For years, maybe you've been waiting for someone to say you're enough, waiting for the pain to lift, waiting for clarity, confidence, closure. But what if the one you've been waiting for is already here? What if the wholeness you seek isn't something to earn, but something to uncover? It's in how you return to your breath. It's in how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. It's in how you stay when it would be easier to run. That's who you've been looking for. And you've been here the whole time. There's no need to rush to the new you. You don't have to become someone else in order to be at peace. You don't have to reinvent yourself to be lovable. The most healing moments often feel like this: a slow exhale, a loosening in your jaw, a quiet moment of realizing, I don't have to be different to deserve this breath. Transformation doesn't always look like change. Sometimes it looks like returning to softness, to truth, to the version of you that never stopped hoping, even while hurting. Let yourself stay with that. Even here, even now, you can be whole and still hurt. Wholeness isn't a feeling, it's a knowing. You may not always feel whole. Some days you'll feel fragile, other days uncertain. You may have moments where you think, I'm not healed enough, I'm not ready, I'm not okay. But even in those moments, you are whole. Because wholeness isn't a mood, it isn't a steady emotion. It's a truth that lives beneath whatever you're feeling. It's the part of you that stays, no matter how loud the thoughts, how heavy the grief, how unsure the way forward. It's the quiet knowing that says, I am still here, I am still me, I am still worthy of love just as I am. You don't have to earn your wholeness. You were whole before the world asked you to prove it, before the disappointments, before the labels, before you internalized that softness had to be hidden. You were whole when you were crying in secret. You were whole when you doubted your worth. You are whole now, reading this, breathing with it, letting it settle into your bones. You don't need to heal everything to live fully. You don't need to explain your emotions to deserve space. You don't need to wait for permission to be enough. You already are. Let that truth be your foundation. Let it hold you when nothing else does. The fullness of being human. Being whole doesn't mean being happy all the time. It means being honest. It means allowing every part of you to exist. The joy, the doubt, the longing, the softness, the rage, the hope. It means saying, nothing in me is exiled. Every part has a voice. Every feeling is safe here. That is wholeness. Not a life without wounds, but a life that welcomes them without shame. Not a perfect version of you, but the most present version. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from the belief that pain makes you unworthy. Ending this chapter, returning to you. You don't have to change to be whole. You just have to remember. You just have to come back to your breath, to your softness, to your realness, to your wholeness. And when you forget again, which you will, you return. That is the practice. That is the way. You don't need to climb to wholeness. You are standing in it now. Let this be enough. Let it settle. You can be whole and still hurt. And you can be healing and already home. Softness is a strength, not a risk. There is a voice inside you that once believed softness was dangerous. Maybe softness got you hurt. Maybe your open heart was met with silence, or shame, or betrayal. Maybe your tenderness was seen as weakness, something to harden, to hide, to outgrow. And so, you learned to guard, to tighten, to mask compassion as control, to replace curiosity with caution. But softness is not fragility. It's not vulnerability in the way the world warned you about. Softness is strength, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice, the kind that doesn't close its fists to feel safe, the kind that listens, stays, and still chooses love. This is your invitation to remember that strength isn't always loud. You've been told that strength looks like grit, that it's big and bold and unshakable, that it's holding it together no matter what. But real strength is quieter. It's knowing when to rest, when to say no without rage, when to cry without apology, when to tell the truth even if your voice shakes. Strength is feeling grief and staying open. It's setting a boundary without building a wall. It's meeting conflict without abandoning your tenderness. Let go of the idea that you must be sharp to be safe. You are allowed to be soft and still survive. In fact, it's how you'll truly live. The cost of armoring up. When you armor up too long, everything starts to feel heavy. The mask you wear to seem unbothered. The distance you keep to avoid disappointment. The pride you hold to hide how much you care. It works until it doesn't. Until you forget what it feels like to speak freely. To rest in someone's arms without fear. To feel something fully and not explain it away. The armor doesn't protect you forever. Eventually, it isolates you, not because you stopped loving, but because you stopped letting love in. Letting go of that armor is terrifying, but it is also the beginning of returning to your life. Not the curated one, the real one. Softness is a strength, not a risk. Tenderness is not naive. Somewhere along the way, tenderness was mistaken for foolishness. People may have said, "You're too sensitive, you care too much, you need to toughen up." And so, you did. You learned to doubt the part of you that wept at beauty. You silenced the voice that spoke softly. You built walls around your empathy and called it wisdom. But tenderness isn't naive, it's deeply awake. It's the part of you that stays kind when the world turns harsh. It's the part of you that says, "Even here, I will not close." It's the heart that aches and still reaches. To feel this much in a world that numbs itself, that's not weakness, that's clarity. Softness reconnects you with yourself. When you stop hardening, something surprising happens. You hear yourself again, not the voice that learned to be careful, but the one that still remembers softness before it was punished. That voice doesn't shout, it whispers, "This doesn't feel right. I need rest. That hurt more than I let on. I still care." You don't have to do anything with those truths. You only have to hear them. Letting your inner softness speak again is how you return to trust. Not with the world, but with your own heart. That's where all healing begins. Softness builds safer relationships. When you live armored, love becomes a transaction. You give only what you think won't be used against you. You ask for only what feels reasonable. You measure every emotional step. But when you soften, something changes. You're no longer relating to people from defense. You're not calculating connection, you're feeling it. You speak without rehearsing. You ask without shrinking. You express without flinching. Not because everyone will understand, but because hiding isn't worth the silence anymore. Softness isn't just for your sake. It's a gift to others, too. It says, "You don't have to be perfect with me. I'm here for what's real." That's how intimacy is built. There is room for softness inside boundaries. You can be soft and still say no. You can be gentle and still mean what you say. You can be vulnerable and still have limits. Softness isn't the absence of protection. It's the presence of clarity without cruelty. When you draw a boundary softly, it doesn't make it less firm. It makes it more sustainable, more human, more honest. Softness lets you choose presence without pretending. It lets you honor your capacity without collapsing. You don't need to swing between extreme stone or surrender. You can stand in your truth and still speak with open hands. That's strength. That's softness. That's the future of your healing. Softness is a strength, not a risk. Softness reopens the door to joy. When you've lived with tension for a long time, joy can feel unfamiliar. Too light, too delicate, too undeserved. But joy is not a luxury. It's a vital sign, a whisper from the body that says, I remember how to feel safe. And joy doesn't arrive through force or achievement. It arrives through softening. The moment you release your grip on, your timeline, your image, your pain, joy finds you. In laughter that surprises you, in sunlight that warms more than your skin, in noticing beauty you forgot how to see. You don't have to earn these moments. You only have to allow them. Softness makes space for joy to sit beside your grief without needing to chase either one away. Softness is how you start trusting again. Maybe your trust was broken. Maybe someone met your softness with carelessness. Maybe you were told your emotions were too much, too messy, too inconvenient. And so, you stopped letting people close. Or worse, you stopped letting yourself close to you. But softness is how trust begins again. Not all at once. Not loudly. But in the way you ask yourself, what do I really feel right now? What do I need that I've been denying? What would happen if I stopped pretending? That kind of honesty rebuilds the bridge. First within, then outward. You're not weak for opening. You're wise enough to know that feeling again is how you stop numbing through life. Softness teaches the nervous system. It's safe now. Your body remembers everything, especially what scared it. And when you live in survival for long enough, even rest can feel unsafe. But when you soften intentionally, you send your body a message louder than words. You don't have to brace anymore. You can put the sword down. I've got you now. This is not spiritual theory. It's biology. Softening your breath, unclenching your jaw, placing a hand over your heart. These aren't small gestures. They are signals. They tell the nervous system, we're not in the past anymore. They make space for calm, not as a performance, but as a lived experience. Softness teaches you how to be here without flinching. Softness doesn't need to be explained. You don't need to justify being tender. You don't need to explain why a moment moved you. You don't need to defend your quiet tears or trembling voice. You can simply say, this touched something real in me, and let that be enough. The world may not always understand softness, but you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be true, to stay open where you used to shut down, to meet yourself with kindness before anyone else has a chance to judge. That's bravery no one sees, but your body feels it, your heart feels it, and slowly, so do those around you. Softness is not an act. It's your original languages spoken again. Softness is a strength, not a risk. When you want to harden, stay soft instead. There will be moments when your old patterns whisper, shut down. Don't let them in. Hold your breath, tighten, disappear. And in those moments, softness may feel impossible, or unsafe, or foolish. But that's the exact moment when softness becomes a sacred practice, not as weakness, not as performance, but as presence. It might look like taking one slow breath before reacting, placing your hand over your chest when the shame rises, saying, I don't know what I feel yet, instead of pretending you're fine. You don't have to be soft forever. Just in this moment, then the next, one breath of kindness at a time. This is how you rewrite the script. Hardness was once your safety, but it doesn't have to stay. Don't hate the walls you built. They were brilliant once. They protected you when you had no other way. They helped you survive. They gave you distance when closeness felt dangerous. But now, you have more tools. You have more choice. You've grown. And those old walls, they're heavy. You don't need to tear them down in one day. But you can open a window. You can let breath in. You can let warmth reach places that haven't felt safe in years. Softness says, "Thank you for keeping me safe. I can take it from here." Softness doesn't mean you don't hurt. Being soft doesn't mean you're never triggered. It doesn't mean your pain disappears. It doesn't mean your voice doesn't shake when you speak the truth. Softness includes all of that. It says, even though this hurts, I'm still here. Even though I'm scared, I'm not shutting down. Even though I feel vulnerable, I'm not abandoning myself. That's the kind of strength softness brings. Not immunity to pain, but willingness to stay with it, honestly. Softness doesn't take away your edge. It gives you something stronger than sharpness. Presence, compassion, endurance that doesn't come from tension, but truth. Softness begins with the way you speak to yourself. You can't offer real softness to others if you're brutal with yourself. Watch your inner voice. Does it rush you when you're tender? Does it mock your tears? Does it shame you for needing rest? Let that voice soften too. Try saying, "It's okay to feel this. You don't have to figure it out today. You're doing your best. That's enough." These aren't just nice words. They're medicine. They are how you slowly teach your nervous system that softness is safe again, that you don't need to be harsh to be strong. That real love begins with how you greet yourself in your own thoughts. Softness is a strength, not a risk. Softness changes how you move through the world. When you soften, the world responds differently. Not always instantly, not always kindly, but differently. You start to speak from the heart instead of from fear. You begin to listen without preparing your defense. You ask more honest questions. You stop rushing toward control and start leaning into curiosity. Softness slows you down, not to delay your life, but to deepen your experience of it. You begin to taste your coffee again, feel your feet on the ground, hear the emotion in someone's voice you used to ignore. Softness makes you more present, not more vulnerable to harm, but more alive to connection. Softness doesn't mean saying yes to everything. You can be soft and still say, "No, I need time. That doesn't feel right for me." Softness doesn't erase your boundaries. It clarifies them. It lets you say hard things gently. It allows you to disagree without needing to dominate. It offers a way to stand firm without hardening your heart. People may try to test your softness. They may confuse it with submission, but you know the truth. You are not bending out of fear. You are choosing grace. That is strength beyond what force can ever teach. Softness allows for more truth. When you're no longer defending yourself all the time, something beautiful happens. You start telling the truth. Not the version that keeps you safe, but the version that frees you. Softness makes space for phrases like, "I don't know yet. This is hard for me to say. I'm still figuring that out. I need more tenderness here." These aren't confessions of weakness. They are acts of liberation. When you stop trying to be invulnerable, you become more honest, more present, more trustworthy, and you begin to realize the people meant for you will not punish you for being soft. They will soften in return. Softness creates safer cycles. When you harden, others often do too. Walls build walls. Sharp words invite sharper ones. Closed hearts rarely open each other. But when you soften, something shifts. Sometimes others meet you there. Sometimes they don't. But always something softens in you. And that matters. Because you begin to break the cycle, the one where love only comes through control, where safety is earned through silence, where intimacy means hiding the parts that feel too much. Softness interrupts those patterns. It says, we can stay, we can feel, we can speak with open hands. That's not just healing for you. That's healing for everyone you touch. Softness is a strength, not a risk. Softness is not the absence of strength. It's the refinement of it. You can still be fierce and soft. You can still be grounded and tender. You can protect your heart without hardening it. Softness doesn't mean you're fragile. It means you've stopped using tension as proof that you're strong. True resilience is not found in how tight you hold your breath, but in how gently you let yourself exhale. It's not in how well you hide your tears, but in how bravely you let them fall. You've been strong in the way the world demanded. Now you're learning to be strong in the way your soul needs. Soft, honest, alive. Softness is how you meet pain without drowning in it. Pain will still come. Softness doesn't promise immunity, but what it offers is this: a way to feel without collapsing, a way to stay present without becoming consumed, a way to witness your own suffering without building a fortress around it. When you are soft with your pain, you don't avoid it. You breathe with it. You say, "I will not deny you, but I will not let you define me either." You feel fully. And then, somehow, you keep going. Not hardened, but widened. Softness expands your capacity for living, even while hurting. You don't have to brace for what hasn't happened. Hardness is often the result of anticipation. You expect the worst. You prepare for disappointment. You tense before the moment even begins. But softness invites a different way. Presence. Instead of bracing, you breathe. Instead of assuming pain, you wait with openness. Instead of preparing your defense, you stay with what's here. This doesn't make you naive. It makes you willing to feel what's true when it arrives. Not what fear rehearsed ahead of time. You're no longer rehearsing heartbreak. You're learning to meet each moment as it comes. And that's a form of freedom that armor will never give you. Softness allows you to begin again, anytime. Maybe you hardened yesterday. Maybe you snapped, withdrew, shut down. Maybe you left softness behind because you were tired, scared, or just surviving. That's okay. Softness is never gone. It's always waiting just beneath the tension. It takes only one breath to return. One slow inhale. One moment of honesty. One whisper of, "I want to come back to myself." And just like that, you begin again. Softness is not a finish line. It's a practice. One you can start, restart, and restart again. There is no failure, only return. Softness is a strength, not a risk. Softness is a form of quiet revolution. In a world that rewards performance, perfection, and productivity, softness is resistance. It is saying, "I will not become hard to survive here. I will not shut down my heart to be accepted. I will not measure my worth by how well I pretend I'm fine." Softness doesn't scream. It doesn't argue. It simply shows up, gentle, real, grounded. It speaks calmly where others demand. It listens fully where others react. It breathes where others brace. This is not weakness. It's a revolution, because it's not trying to conquer. It's trying to connect. Softness changes the world around you. When you soften, it's not just for you. The people you speak to feel it. The people you love relax around it. The people who once flinched from harshness begin to open near your presence. Softness is contagious, not like a wildfire, but like sunlight. It doesn't rush. It doesn't force. It simply warms whatever it touches. A moment of true softness can undo years of coldness. A single deep breath can remind a nervous system it's okay to rest again. You never know who needed your softness, because often it's not what you say, but how you are when you say it. Your presence is the medicine. Softness in your voice makes people feel safe. You've likely been spoken to with sharpness. You've probably learned to use it too, as defense, as a structure, as protection. But your voice can be a safe place. Softness in tone doesn't mean you're unsure. It means you're rooted. You can say, "No," without tension. "This isn't okay," without yelling. "I need space," without punishing. "I love you," without fear. Your softness can be steady. It can be clear. It can be honest without edge. And when it is, others lean in, not out of fear, but out of feeling seen. This is how softness rebuilds trust. Word by word, breath by breath. Softness turns presence into power. What if your presence didn't need to be commanding to be powerful? What if your softness is the very thing people remember? The moment you didn't interrupt, the time you held someone's silence like it was sacred, the way you stayed gentle when someone expected you to break. These are acts of strength, the kind the world doesn't always praise, but deeply needs. Softness doesn't erase your impact, it deepens it. You become unforgettable, not because you were loud, but because you were real. And in a hardened world, realness is rare, which makes your softness priceless. Softness is a strength, not a risk. Carrying softness into everyday life. Softness doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't require silence or sacred space. It belongs in the everyday, in how you respond to an unexpected question, in how you pause before rushing to fix, in how you hold your own hand when no one else is watching. You can carry softness into conversations, into conflict, into your morning routine, into how you look at your reflection. You can let it shape the way you move through the grocery store, the way you answer an email, the way you close your eyes at night. Softness is not a state you visit, it's a way of living. You can be soft and still stand tall. Softness does not fold you, it forms you. It is how your strength breathes, how your wisdom speaks, how your spirit heals. You can be soft and still walk through fire, still hold your ground, still rise when life asks you to begin again. You don't have to harden to lead. You don't have to tense to be safe. You don't have to sharpen to matter. You can show up soft and still be powerful, still be seen, still be enough. Softness is the return to your original self. Before the world asked you to toughen up, before the rejections, the pressure, the losses, you were soft. You felt deeply. You loved freely. You cried without shame. You reached out without bracing. That self is still here, waiting, breathing, ready to rise again, not because it's easy, but because it's who you've always been. Softness is not what breaks you, it's what brings you home. Closing with an open heart. As this chapter ends, nothing is demanded of you. You are not asked to stay soft all the time. You are not asked to let everyone in. You are simply invited to soften moment by moment with yourself, to meet the tight places with breath, to let your heart whisper instead of shout, to practice strength that doesn't push but gently opens. This is how you begin again, not through force, but through the simple, quiet decision to be exactly as you are, tender, present, and deeply, undeniably strong. The pause is also the path you've been taught to move, to keep going, to push forward even when everything inside you is begging for stillness. So when life slows you down, when plans fall apart, when your body says, stop, when your mind feels foggy and unclear, you wonder, am I lost? Am I behind? Am I failing? But what if you are exactly where you need to be? What if the pause is not punishment, but permission? What if the pause isn't a detour but the actual path? This chapter is about trusting the in-between, the moments where you are not chasing, not fixing, not performing, the sacred spaces where you are simply here, breathing, feeling, becoming, when you don't know what comes next. There are seasons where the clarity disappears, where the future goes quiet, where the certainty you once held in your hands slips through your fingers, and all you're left with is the now. No blueprint, no schedule, just questions and breath. It's uncomfortable, but it's also sacred, because this is where you begin listening again, not to your goals, not to your fear, but to your life. What does it sound like when you stop rushing towards something? What does it feel like when you stop trying to arrive? The pause has answers you can't hear when you're sprinting. Let yourself be still long enough to listen. You're allowed to stop without explaining. You don't need to collapse to justify rest. You don't need to burn out to deserve stillness. You can simply say, I'm pausing. I'm not ready to move yet. I don't have a plan, but I know I need space. This doesn't make you lazy, it makes you honest. You are allowed to not have it all figured out, to not know what comes next, to not be performing growth every single day. You are allowed to just be. The world may not always understand this. That's okay. The pause doesn't need to be visible to be valid. It only needs to be felt deep in your chest, in the place where truth lives. Chapter 8. The pause is also the path. The stillness you resist might be what you need. Sometimes we resist the pause, not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. Stillness feels foreign in a world addicted to motion. We measure worth by momentum. We celebrate those who hustle, push, grind. So when life invites you to slow down, you might panic. You might ask, what am I missing? What am I not doing? What will fall apart if I stop? But what if the only thing that falls apart is the illusion that your value depends on your speed? Stillness is not the absence of meaning. It's the presence of depth. What you're running from in stillness might actually be what you've been longing to meet: yourself. You don't have to be productive to be valuable. You are not your output. You are not your goals. You are not your calendar or your checklists. There is worth in your breath, even when you do nothing, even when you waste time, even when you feel uncertain or undone. We've been conditioned to believe rest must be earned, stillness must be justified, presence must be productive. But you don't owe the world your constant improvement. You are allowed to take a break without turning it into a breakthrough. Some pauses are sacred simply because they let you exist without performance, without pressure. Let that be enough. Pausing is not losing momentum, it's reclaiming direction. There's a difference between movement and alignment. You can be moving fast and going nowhere. You can be checking boxes while ignoring your body. You can be achieving goals that no longer reflect your heart. The pause helps you notice. It lets you step out of the noise long enough to ask, is this even mine? Does this still fit who I'm becoming? What am I doing just to be seen? Sometimes, what looks like a loss of momentum is actually a return to meaning. Sometimes, what feels like falling behind is the first step toward your real path. And you don't have to have all the answers to begin walking it. You just have to stop running. The pause is also the path. The pause teaches you how to be present. In motion, we often miss the moment. We rush through meals without tasting. We speak without listening. We breathe without noticing. But in the pause, everything slows enough to be felt again. The cup of tea warms your hands. The quiet between words holds meaning. The sunlight lands softly on your face and you actually feel it. Presence doesn't require perfection. It only requires willingness. The pause isn't asking you to stop living. It's asking you to actually live the moment you're in. To stop bracing for what's next. To stop rewriting what already passed. To arrive here, where your body already is. Where your breath already is. Where peace has been waiting all along. You don't have to get somewhere right now. Pausing feels hard when you believe you're supposed to be somewhere else. But what if there's no urgent destination? No moment that needs to be forced? No version of you that's more worthy than the one sitting here now? The pause invites you to ask, what if this is enough? What if I don't need a breakthrough today? What if being with myself is the only task? It's not complacency. It's trust. It's trusting that growth still happens in stillness. That life continues even when you're not pushing. That the version of you who rests is just as sacred as the one who strives. Resting is a spiritual practice. You don't have to climb a mountain to find God. Sometimes resting is enough. Resting is how your nervous system says, I believe I'm safe. It's how your soul says, I'm worthy even when I'm not producing. It's how your heart says, I want to listen, not just fix. Let rest be holy. Let doing nothing become a form of devotion. Not because you're avoiding the world, but because you're choosing to meet it without abandoning yourself. Every time you choose rest without shame, You reclaim your worth from systems that tried to sell it back to you. You're not lazy, you're remembering. Even in the pause, you are becoming. It may not feel like transformation. There's no certificate, no applause, no final lesson, but something is shifting quietly in the pause. Your breath is slowing. Your body is softening. Your soul is settling into its own rhythm. You're not behind. You're becoming. In the stillness, your roots grow deeper. Your boundaries get clearer. Your needs speak louder. This is growth that doesn't perform. It simply unfolds. Let it. The pause is also the path. In a world that worships hustle, rest is resistance. The world doesn't often reward pausing. It praises the ones who keep going, the ones who say yes while running on empty, the ones who burn out, then blame themselves for the smoke. But rest is not weakness. It's a boundary. It's a reclamation. It's a refusal to let your soul be measured by your productivity. Rest says, I am not a machine. I am not available to be consumed. I will not collapse just to be seen as committed. To pause in a culture of urgency is an act of courage. It disrupts the cycle. It makes room for truth. It models what it means to live fully, not just function endlessly. Let rest be your quiet rebellion. Peace doesn't shout, it settles. You might be waiting for peace to arrive as a grand moment, as ceremony, as sign, as sudden stillness. But peace is quieter than that. It slips in during long exhalations. It waits beneath the noise of expectations. It hums in the background when you finally stop trying to earn your worth. The pause is where peace finds you. It doesn't demand anything. It doesn't require perfection. It simply asks, will you sit with me a while? Not to achieve anything, not to fix anything, but just to be. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are here. And peace begins wherever that's allowed to be enough. Sometimes nothing is wrong, you're just tired. Exhaustion doesn't always come with a cause. Sometimes it's not a crisis. It's just too much for too long. You may ask yourself, why do I feel like this? Shouldn't I be okay by now? But what if you are okay? What if you're not lost, just in a necessary pause? A time to integrate. A time to catch your breath. A time to stop rushing past your own heart. You don't have to explain your fatigue. You don't have to justify your need for stillness. You only have to let your body and your soul be held for a moment. That's not avoidance. That's wisdom. You are allowed to exist without a goal. You are allowed to wake up without a 5-year plan. You are allowed to sit down with no intention but rest. You are allowed to exist simply because you are alive. The pause reminds you, you are not a problem to solve. You are not a brand to build. You are not a story that always needs resolution. You are a person with a heart and breath and a body that longs not to be managed but met. So today, give yourself the space to just be. Even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it feels unproductive, even if it feels strange at first, you're not falling behind. You're falling into yourself. The pause is also the path. The pause lets emotions catch up. Sometimes the body moves faster than the heart. You keep going, checking boxes, showing up, but deep inside, something still hasn't landed. Grief, joy, change, loss, a truth you weren't ready to face. The pause is where it all catches up. It's the moment you sit still long enough to feel what's been following you. The moment when your body finally exhales the tension it's been carrying silently. The moment when tears rise not because something just happened, but because you finally stopped long enough to notice they were always there. This isn't falling apart. It's catching up. It's integration. And it matters more than anyone can see. Stillness is when wisdom speaks. There's a clarity that doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from stopping, from letting the noise settle, from letting the surface still, from giving the deep waters of your being space to speak. The pause makes room for intuition, for quiet knowing, for answers that can't be forced, only revealed. You may not find the solution immediately, But in the pause, you begin to listen again. And that's where wisdom waits. Not in the next book or the next breakthrough, but in the moment when you become willing to stop searching and start listening. Even if the only voice you hear at first is silence, keep listening. That silence is fertile. The pause is where trust is rebuilt. When everything slows down, uncertainty can rise. Am I doing enough? What if I'm missing something? What if this stillness costs me everything? But trust isn't rebuilt in motion. It's rebuilt in pause. When you learn that nothing collapses if you rest. When you realize your worth doesn't evaporate when you're not useful. When you feel anxiety rise and stay present anyway. That's trust. That's how you rewire what the world tried to teach you. That urgency is value and stillness is laziness. You begin to trust life again, not because everything is under control, but because you're learning to stay open in the unknown. That's not small. That's sacred. Rest doesn't mean nothing's happening. On the surface, the pause may feel empty, quiet, still, unproductive. But below the surface, things are shifting. Like seeds underground before they sprout. Like cells repairing during sleep. Like emotions reshaping into insight. Rest is movement just in a different direction. Inward, downward, deeper. This is the kind of growth you can't measure. The kind that doesn't post well. But it's the kind that sustains you. So don't rush the pause. Let it do its quiet work. You may not feel it yet, but something is rooting. Something is healing. Something is getting ready to bloom. The pause is also the path. The pause teaches self-trust. When you stop moving, something quiet surfaces. The question of whether you can trust yourself without a plan, without a checklist, without constant doing. In the pause, old doubts rise. Will I fall behind? Am I wasting time? Is it okay to just be? But staying in the pause is how you answer those questions with something deeper than logic. Presence. Every moment you resist the urge to rush proves to your nervous system, I can stay with myself even when I don't know what's next. I don't need constant productivity to feel grounded. I'm not abandoning myself anymore. That's what self-trust sounds like. It's not always loud, it's not always confident, but it's honest. And that honesty rebuilds you from the inside out. Gentle is still forward. You may think you're stuck because things feel slower now, because you're not racing toward a goal, because you're not checking boxes like you used to. But gentle doesn't mean stagnant. The seed grows quietly. The heart mends softly. The soul returns slowly. Sometimes the most important progress is invisible. It shows up as less panic, as more breath, as the moment you choose peace over pressure, silence over shame. You are not behind. You're walking forward just without the noise. And that is healing, not forcing what isn't ready. The pause teaches patience. It teaches you to stop pushing before the fruit is ripe, to stop demanding clarity before the insight has formed, to stop dragging yourself toward answers that aren't ready to be born. Letting things take their time doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting the rhythm of your own becoming. You are not on anyone else's timeline. You are not obligated to rush toward someone else's version of progress. There's wisdom in the waiting. There's transformation in the stillness. Let the next version of you emerge naturally, not because you forced it, but because you created space for it to arrive. The pause doesn't mean you've lost the way. Just because you're not sure where you're going doesn't mean you're lost. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean nothing's happening. Just because you don't feel certain doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. The pause isn't the absence of the path. It is the path. It's the part that doesn't show up in the storybooks. It's the breath between chapters, the still point between who you were and who you're becoming. You don't have to know where you're going to be moving in the right direction. You just have to keep listening, keep breathing, keep being. Here, the pause is also the path. The pause is a bridge between versions of you. You are no longer who you were, but you're not yet who you are becoming. This is the space in between. The in-between can feel uncomfortable, like standing in a doorway, unsure if you're entering or leaving, like being stripped of your old armor, but not yet clothed in the softness of who you're meant to be. But don't rush through this space. The pause is where the old stories loosen, where the new ones begin to whisper, where your identity unhooks from past expectations and slowly rewires itself around your truth. This is not limbo. This is becoming. You are not stuck. You are bridging. And bridges are sacred. Let the stillness hold what you cannot yet name. There are feelings that rise in the pause with no clear label. A quietude, a restlessness, a tenderness you don't fully understand. The mind might try to name it, call it depression, confusion, fear, but maybe it's just feeling. Maybe it's just being human. Let the stillness hold it. You don't need to make meaning out of everything right away. You don't need to figure it out before you feel it. Some truths are revealed not through analysis, but through attention. Let it sit with you. Let it breathe with you. Let it be seen without being solved. That, too, is healing. You can pause without quitting. Just because you've stopped doesn't mean you're giving up. The pause is not surrender to failure. It's surrender to wisdom. The kind that says, this effort is no longer aligned. This pressure is no longer needed. This part of me needs a moment to rest. You can stop and still care. You can pause and still believe. You can put something down without deciding it's over forever. The pause is the breath before clarity, the space where choice returns. You are not quitting, you are resetting. The pause is where you remember who you really are. Outside of roles, outside of doing, outside of noise, you are still you. In the quiet, you begin to remember. You are not your resume. You are not your social feed. You are not your timeline, your output, or your pace. You are breath. You are soul. You are presence. You were always whole long before you were productive. And in the stillness, that truth comes home to rest in your bones. The pause is also the path. Trust the quiet between the chapters. Every story needs a breath between the pages, a space where the ink settles, a moment where nothing happens, and yet everything shifts. This is that moment, the part of your life where there is no plot twist, no breakthrough, no performance, only a deep exhale, a turning inward, a chapter that doesn't need to be loud to be life-changing. You are not behind. You are simply in the pause that lets you remember who you are, without the roles, without the striving, without the pressure to be anything other than present. Let this space write you anew. You don't need to hurry toward what's next. You may feel the pull to figure it out, to rush into clarity, to map the rest of your life in response to the discomfort of uncertainty. But clarity does not come from panic. It comes from patience. You don't need to know where this leads. You only need to stay close to what is real now. The breath in your body, the truth in your chest, the whisper that says, it's okay to wait. Let yourself unfold slowly. Let the next step arrive without being summoned. You are allowed to walk forward when your feet are ready, not before. Presence is a path, not just a place. You may have thought healing meant arriving somewhere, but maybe it just means staying with your discomfort long enough to see what it wants to teach you, staying with your body long enough to trust it again, staying with yourself even when you feel lost. Presence is not a destination. It is a way of moving through life, with intention, with breath, with the humility to not know everything and the strength to remain anyway. That's not passive. That's sacred, closing the chapter without closing the door. As this chapter ends, you are not asked to figure out your next move. You are not asked to rush. You are not asked to perform presence. You are simply invited to carry a deeper trust into whatever comes next. Trust that the pause was not empty, that the stillness changed you, that the quiet did its work, not loudly, not visibly, but meaningfully. And when the world calls you to keep running, you'll remember The pause is not the opposite of progress. It is the soul's way of walking forward with wisdom. Stay here just a little longer, and when you rise, rise slowly. You are not late. You are right on time. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be met. Self-improvement isn't always self-compassion. There's a difference between healing from love and trying to heal because you think you're broken. Much of what's called self-improvement is really self-rejection dressed up in discipline. It says, if I fix this part of me, then I'll be lovable. If I stop feeling this way, then I'll be enough. If I become who they want, then I'll finally belong. But healing doesn't begin with changing yourself. It begins with meeting yourself. Meeting the fear without shrinking. Meeting the sadness without shame. Meeting the anger without shutting it down. Not to analyze it, not to fix it, but to offer it company. That's where transformation begins. Not in perfection, in presence. You don't have to prove you're worth healing. You may carry the belief quiet, unspoken, that you need to earn your healing. That if you're doing it right, you won't still be hurting. That if you slip, if you fall apart, if you feel the ache again, you've somehow failed. But healing isn't a transaction, and worth is not a reward. You are allowed to hurt and still be healing. You are allowed to ask for help, even if you don't have the right words. You are allowed to not know what's next and still deserve kindness. You don't have to fix yourself to be worthy of your own love. You already are. Even if the pain hasn't left, even if the patterns still pull, even if all you did today was breathe through another wave, that's enough. And so are you. You can be held, even before you're healed. We often wait to be met until we've cleaned up our pain, until we've learned how to explain it, until we're sure we won't scare anyone away. But what if the real healing comes from letting someone see us now, unfixed, unfinished, still shaking? What if being held isn't something you get after you get better, but something that makes getting better possible? You don't have to translate your pain into something palatable. You can be held in your rawness, in your mess, in your in-between, not because you've become someone new, but because you were always worthy of being met, exactly as you are. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be met. Meet the parts of you that you've avoided. There are places inside you you've tiptoed around, emotions you've labeled too much, memories you've tucked away because they felt too big, too messy, too unresolved. But those parts are not here to harm you. They are here to be met, not managed, not silenced, met. Imagine sitting down with your younger self, the one who felt ignored, misunderstood, or unsafe. Not to give them advice, not to tell them to be strong, but just to say, I see you, I hear you, you don't have to be alone anymore. That's what healing is. Not fixing the pain, but finally acknowledging it. Healing happens when you stop turning away. It's easier to stay busy, to fill the silence, to numb the ache, to keep moving and call it progress. Now, but real healing begins when you stop turning away from yourself. When you stop abandoning your sadness because it's inconvenient. When you stop hiding your fear because it feels unworthy. When you stop editing your grief to make it more acceptable. You don't have to face everything at once. You don't have to conquer your emotions. You just have to sit beside them without judgment, without urgency. To say, you don't scare me anymore. You belong here too. And that's how the parts of you you've exiled finally come home. You can't force healing, but you can create safety. You can't rush the pain out of your body. You can't speed up your nervous system's readiness. You can't force closure on a heart that still aches. But you can create the conditions where healing becomes possible. You can light the candle. You can slow the breath. You can whisper, I'm here. I won't abandon you again. And your body will start to believe you. Your heart will begin to soften. Your shame will loosen its grip. Not because you've figured everything out, but because you've finally created space for everything to exist. Safety isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of permission. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be met. Self-kindness heals what judgment never could do. You've tried judging yourself into healing. You've called yourself weak for still feeling pain. You've rushed yourself forward with shame as your fuel, but judgment never creates safety. And without safety, healing can't take root. Self-kindness is not indulgent. It's necessary. It's saying, it's okay, when the same fear rises again. It's pausing when the old narrative says, push harder. It's softening your tone, especially in your own mind. Kindness doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow differently, from soil that's tender, from words that soothe instead of scold, from patience that says, you don't have to be fixed. You only need to be loved. You don't have to earn the right to be gentle with yourself. You might believe that gentleness must be earned, that it's a reward for progress, that only after you've done enough, changed enough, healed enough, then, maybe, you can rest. But gentleness is not a prize. It's a practice. And it begins now, right here, where you still feel confused, still hurt, still learning how to be with yourself. You are allowed to meet yourself with care, not later, not once it all makes sense, but now. This is how love begins, with your own voice, speaking to your own soul, without conditions. Healing is less about doing, more about allowing. You've been taught to approach healing like a checklist. Name the wound, understand the trigger, rewrite the belief, fix the problem. But healing isn't always something you do. Sometimes it's something you allow. Allowing rest, allowing softness, allowing the pain to be there without needing it to vanish. It's slowing down long enough for your system to say, I don't need to fight right now. I can just be here. And that just is not small. It's everything, because healing often arrives when you finally stop trying to earn it. You are the medicine you've been waiting for. Maybe you've searched for healing in so many places. Books, teachers, therapies, methods, and they've offered wisdom. They've held pieces of truth. But here's what you may not have realized. You are also the medicine. Your breath, your honesty, your ability to sit with yourself when it hurts. That is the most powerful healing tool you'll ever carry. Because when you stop looking outside yourself for rescue, you begin to build a relationship with the one person who's never left, you. And that relationship, when built with care, becomes the home where all parts of you are finally met. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be met. Being met is more powerful than being helped. You may have been helped many times, offered advice, solutions, tools, steps, and some of that support may have been useful. But what your heart really longed for was to be met, not as a problem, not as a project, but as a person. Being met sounds like, I don't have to understand to sit with you. You don't need to make sense to be seen. That's, I'm not here to change you. I'm here to stay with you. When someone meets you like that, something softens inside. You stop defending. You stop performing. You start trusting. Because your pain isn't being examined, it's being witnessed. And sometimes, that's the only medicine you need. Presence heals what pressure cannot. You've tried pushing through the discomfort. You've told yourself to get over it. You've demanded clarity before your heart was ready. But healing doesn't come through pressure. It comes through presence. Just being here, breathing, listening to your own pulse without rushing it forward, letting your feelings unfold at their own pace instead of dragging them into insight, letting your body speak in sensations before demanding stories, letting stillness speak before solutions are summoned. This is how healing happens slowly, deeply, in the quiet spaces where nothing is forced, but everything is allowed. You don't need to understand everything to heal. There will be things you can't name, emotions you can't trace back to an event, sadnesses that rise without explanation. That doesn't mean they aren't real. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. The need to understand everything can become another form of control, another way to keep yourself at arm's length. But healing asks for intimacy. It asks you to sit with the things you don't yet understand and love them anyway. You can say, I don't know where this came from, but I believe it belongs. And in that belonging, even without full understanding, something inside begins to rest. The part of you that's hurting doesn't need fixing, it needs holding. There's a younger part of you that never got what it needed. A part that's still waiting, not for explanation, not for strategy, but for presence. That part wants to hear, I'm not turning away. I see how much this mattered. End of 2. You don't have to be anything but exactly how you are right now. This is the moment when the wound stops screaming, not because it was fixed, but because it was finally heard. You don't have to offer advice to yourself. You don't have to solve your sadness. You only have to stay. And in staying, you meet the part of you that's been waiting the longest. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be met. Safety is created in presence, not perfection. You don't need perfect words to create safety. You don't need to get everything right. You don't need to know exactly what you feel or how to say it. You only need to stay. Safety is built in moments like this. Sitting with yourself while the tears rise. Not shaming the part of you that still flinches. Holding your hand to your heart and saying, I'm not leaving you this time. Oh, you create safety when you remain present with what you used to avoid. You heal when you respond with presence instead of panic. You don't need to be healed to offer yourself comfort. You only need to be here. The nervous system trusts what is consistent. Your mind may want a quick fix, but your body craves consistency. It asks, will you still be here when this feeling returns tomorrow? Will you still offer kindness when the progress disappears? Will you still stay close when I forget how far I've come? The nervous system learns through repetition, not promises. It softens when your actions match your intention. It opens when your gentleness becomes routine. You don't have to say the right thing. You just have to stay long enough for your body to believe it's safe to feel again. That's how trust is built. Not through force, but through soft, sustained presence. Some wounds don't close, but they do change. There are wounds that don't go away. Not because you haven't done enough healing, not because you're holding on, but because they are part of your story now, and that's okay. You don't need every scar to fade for peace to arrive. Some pain transforms into wisdom. Some loss becomes a quiet strength. Some grief lives beside joy, not in its way but as part of its depth. The goal isn't to erase what's hurt you. The goal is to stop fighting it, to stop defining yourself by it, to stop needing to fix it in order to feel free. You can live with your story, not as its victim, but as its witness. You are allowed to be a work in progress and still be met with love. You don't have to be complete to be loved. You don't have to be better to be supported. You don't have to finish healing to be worthy of belonging. You are allowed to be in the messy middle, still learning, still hurting, still figuring things out, and still be held, and still be valued, and still be met by people who don't need you to shine, to see your light. Let go of the idea that you need to reach some imaginary point of okay before you're allowed to be embraced. Love isn't reserved for the healed. Love is what helps you heal. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be met. Being met is the shift from surviving to belonging. You can survive without being seen. You've proven that. You've smiled through numbness. You've kept moving through heartbreak. You've functioned through silence. But belonging is different. Belonging doesn't ask you to pretend. It says, come as you are. Bring your whole self, even the trembling parts. And when you are met genuinely, without expectation, you begin to rest in ways survival never allowed. You stop performing. You start breathing. You stop scanning for danger. You start trusting what's real. You no longer have to earn your place. You belong, not because of what you do, but because of who you are, even in your most unguarded form. You are not a fixer-upper. You are a living, breathing mystery. You are not a project. not a checklist, not a self-help strategy waiting for execution. You are not meant to be optimized. You are meant to be known, to be witnessed, to be felt as a living, breathing, evolving mystery. The need to fix yourself is often just a disguise for fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being misunderstood, fear of taking up space as you actually are. But the truth is, you're not broken. You are layered. You are dynamic. You are learning, unlearning, changing, and none of that disqualifies your worth. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. Sometimes the most healing thing is to be still and stay. Healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like not running, not from the emotion, not from the discomfort, not from the quiet. Sometimes healing is choosing to stay when you used to flee, to sit with the sensation instead of escaping it, to let your own presence become the anchor. You don't need to fix the moment. You only need to remain in it long enough for your body to learn. We can feel this and still be safe. We can stay and still be loved. You meet yourself again and again by not leaving. That's enough. That's everything. You are not behind, you are on sacred timing. Healing doesn't run on deadlines. It unfolds in spirals. It circles back before it moves forward. It pauses when it needs breath. It slows when your soul asks for gentleness. You are not behind. You are right on time. For your life, your rhythm, your return. Being met doesn't require you to catch up. It invites you to settle in, to say, this is who I am right now. And that's enough to be held. Let that be your permission. To stop comparing, to stop proving, to stop rushing towards some imagined finish line. You're already here, and here is holy. Meeting yourself is the beginning of coming home. There will always be parts of you that ache to be seen, not for what they can do, not for how well they've been polished, but simply for existing. You may have spent years searching for someone to meet you there, in your softness, your struggle, your honesty, and while others can help, the deepest shift begins when you meet yourself. When you say to the ache inside, you don't have to disappear to be loved. I will sit with you now, not to change you, but to witness you. You're allowed to take up space. That is the beginning of coming home, not to who you should be, but to who you've always been underneath the fixing. The most healing thing may not be what you do, but how you stay. You might still think healing is about doing, working harder, thinking deeper, trying more. But what if healing is about staying? Staying kind when old shame rises. Staying soft when you want to armor up. Staying present when the voice says, you should be better than this. Every time you stay, you undo a bit of the story that says, you're only lovable when you're okay. You create new pathway zones that say, I am allowed to be seen right here, in this. I don't need to fix it to belong. This version of me is enough. That's not passive, that's power. What you thought needed to be fixed, just needed to be felt. The sadness you've been analyzing for years, maybe it just needed to be held. The fear you tried to reason away, maybe it just needed safety. The parts of you that keep repeating old stories, maybe they're not sabotaging you, maybe they're just trying to be heard. So many things you've been trying to fix were never broken. They were waiting for your presence, not your pressure. They were waiting for you to feel them without fear. That moment is here now. You are already enough, and you are already met. As this chapter closes, remember, you don't need to be more healed to be more worthy. You don't need to finish the work to be fully loved. You don't need to become someone else to begin again. You are not a puzzle. You are a presence. You are not a project. You are a person. And the one you've been waiting to meet, the one who truly sees you, holds you, accepts you, was never far away. They are here, in this breath, in this moment, in you. You don't need to be fixed. You just need to be met. And now you are. Welcome back. You are already the answer. You've searched. In books, in people, in silence, and in struggle. You've asked, When will I be okay? When will I finally feel whole? When will I become the version of me that no longer aches? And here you are, after all the striving, after all the spirals, after all the questions that kept you up at night. You arrive at something quieter than clarity, a knowing, not the kind that comes from figuring it out, the kind that comes from finally listening. You are not waiting for the answer anymore. You are it. You are the one who stayed, the one who softened instead of shutting down, the one who returned to presence again and again. The question was never, when will I get there? It was always, will I let this be enough? And now maybe you're ready to say yes. You've been becoming this whole time. You thought healing would be a moment, an arrival, a day when everything made sense and the pain stopped whispering. But healing turned out to be slower than that, softer, wiser. It looked like letting yourself rest before everything was resolved, speaking the truth with a shaking voice, saying, I matter, without needing anyone else to agree. Every breath you stayed with yourself, every time you showed up, even while hurting, you were becoming, and you still are. You didn't miss it. You didn't fall behind. You've been walking the answer all along. You don't need more time. You need more trust. There's a part of you that keeps waiting for the perfect moment, for complete clarity, for permission. But what if the time is now? What if trust is more essential than timing? Trust that you can meet what arises. Trust that the next step will reveal itself when you're ready. Trust that even the parts of you that still hurt belong. This isn't reckless. This is devotion to your own unfolding, to your own rhythm, to your right to stop chasing and start living. You don't need to be more. You need to believe you already are. You are already the answer. Wholeness was never far away. It wasn't in the next breakthrough. It wasn't waiting at the end of some hard-earned path. It was always here beneath the noise, behind the striving. Wholeness isn't something you achieve. It's something you uncover when the chasing quiets down. You don't need to do more to deserve it. You don't need to heal faster to find it. You only need to remember that your wholeness isn't defined by how well you perform peace, but by how deeply you're willing to stay present with what is, right now, even if there's still pain. Right now, even if you're unsure. Right now, even if nothing feels resolved. This moment is whole, and so are you. There's nothing left to prove. You've tried to earn rest, tried to deserve peace, tried to be so good, so together, so healed, that no one could question your worth. But the game of proving never ends until you choose to stop playing. What if you didn't need to be impressive? What if just being was enough? The version of you that breathes gently, that slows down, that listens to your heart instead of silencing it, is not less worthy. It's the real you, the one that doesn't perform healing, but lives it, quietly, softly, truthfully. You can lay the proving down now. It was never yours to carry. You're not a puzzle to solve. You're a presence to honor. You don't need more answers. You need more honesty, more listening, more room to feel what you've spent years avoiding. Not to fix it, not to diagnose it, but to honor it. Your fear, your tenderness, your longing, they're not flaws. They're invitations. Every part of you that you've tried to silence is simply asking, will you stay with me now? Will you stop looking for a better version of me to love? Will you stop abandoning me when I show up as messy and real? Let your healing be this: choosing presence over perfection, choosing to be with yourself instead of trying to change yourself. That's not giving up, that's finally coming home. Receiving is the final act of trust. You've done the work, you've searched, softened, stayed, and now you're being asked to receive. Not chase, not prove, receive. Love, without wondering if you deserve it. Rest, without apologizing for it. Peace, without waiting for everything to be perfect first. This is the final threshold. Letting life come to you, letting your open hands. I mean, you're no longer gripping anything, but also no longer pushing it all away. You are allowed to receive what you once believed you had to earn. You are allowed to let it be easy.